Chapter 1328. Qing Yishuan and the others who hid in the divine hall of the Eight Wastelands were all extremely furious. They had nowhere to vent their anger, but there was nothing they could do about the current situation. If they fought, the 5 holy emperors were not the opponents of the 5 holy emperors of the Tao family. If they acted too recklessly, it would be extremely easy for them to lose their lives. I wonder when the ruler will return. If he does, we'll definitely make the people of the Tao family pay, said an elder of the Turtle Clan. He felt admiration for Jianqin from the bottom of his heart. This was because he would never forget that the Turtle Clan had only been able to grow so rapidly under the ruler's lead. At the same time, the 5 16th-star experts who watched over the Turtle Clan had all been brought back by the ruler. They had nothing to do with the Turtle Clan. Qing Yishuan raised an eyebrow and curled her lips in disdain. She sneered, "Tao Jingtian has a divine hall. It's not like you don't know how tough divine halls are. Only the Holy Emperor can break through them. I admit that Jianqin's talent is extremely good and he's extremely powerful now. But he still can't do anything to Tao Jingtian, who has a divine hall. He's not even Tao Jingtian's opponent when he's alone. Under these circumstances, he'll be completely useless even if he returns. We believe in the ruler. The ruler is wise. The ruler is the only hope of our Turtle Clan. As long as the ruler is present, all the problems we face will be easily resolved." A clansman nearby heard Qing Yishuan talk about Jianqin and immediately stood forward to roar out in righteous indignation. He defended the dignity of the ruler of the Turtle Clan very much. "Yes, that's right. The ruler of our Turtle Clan is powerful and wise. Right now, our Turtle Clan is only right now. Our Turtle Clan is in such a state because the ruler is not present. If the ruler was present, I believe that all the problems we face would be resolved under the wise leadership of the ruler. Doesn't everything that has happened to us today tell us even more clearly that our Turtle Clan cannot do without a ruler? Our Turtle Clan can only become extremely powerful with a ruler present. If we lose our ruler, we'll be nothing," Jianqin said. More and more people joined in, doing their best to defend Jianqin and refute Qing Yishuan's words. These people all felt blind admiration for the ruler of the Turtle Clan. Even their minds and beliefs had been unknowingly influenced by Jianqin. Qing Yishuan felt her head ache when she saw the fanaticism in the eyes of the clansmen. She shook her head helplessly and murmured, "It really is hopeless. I really don't understand it. Jianqin, that kid has only come to the Turtle Clan for so long, yet he has already won the hearts of so many people. Tao Zhengtian and the Holy Emperor of the Alliance continued to cause a ruckus outside. They'd basically used every method they could think of to force the ruler of the Turtle Clan to come out, but they did not even see the ruler's figure after so many days." At this moment, Tao Jingtian and the others could not help but secretly mutter to themselves. They had already guessed that it was extremely likely that the ruler of the Turtle Clan was not present or that he was in seclusion. "Let's continue blocking the way here. Even if the ruler of the Turtle Clan isn't here, someone has probably contacted him through a communication technique. He'll probably return before long." Tao Zhengtian sat at the top of the divine hall leisurely. He stared at the divine hall of the 8 Wastelands with narrowed eyes. He was filled with confidence. At this moment, an ear-piercing sound rang out. 2 figures hurried over with lightning-like speed. They moved extremely quickly. The 2 figures' use of space was not particularly profound in the eyes of the Holy Emperor, but they moved so quickly that it left Tao Jingtian and the others speechless. This was because they were no slower than the Holy Emperor. They were even faster than many 16th-star experts. In the blink of an eye, the 2 figures stopped in the middle of the 2 divine palaces. At this time, their faces could finally be seen clearly. One of them was wearing a white robe and looked to be in his 20s. He was handsome and filled with a masculine aura. His eyes were as sharp as swords, and when one looked into his eyes, one would feel pain in one's eyes. The other person was an extremely burly man. His skin glowed with a faint golden light, making him seem like he had been forged from gold. The most eye-catching part of him was the imprint of a battle axe between his eyebrows. It's the ruler of the Turtle Clan. The ruler of the Turtle Clan has returned. One of the holy emperors from the Tao family's alliance immediately cried out when he saw who it was. The two of them were Jianqin and Tai Ta, who had just returned from the Poseidon Hall. Tao Jingtian's eyes sharpened at that moment. He stared at them with shining eyes as he sneered, "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you finally returned. Old Man has been waiting here for many days." Jianqin stared at Tao Jingtian and the others who blocked the entrance of the Turtle Clan with a sunken face. He then glanced around the Turtle Clan and immediately let out a sigh of relief. Although the Turtle Clan had been reduced to a horrible state, he did not see any corpses or bloodstains. Everyone had hidden themselves in the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. Jianqin's face was immediately filled with heavy killing intent. He had never thought that Tao Jingtian would block the entrance of the Turtle Clan before he had even gone to deal with Tao Jian. If it were not for the fact that he had left behind the divine hall of the 8 wastelands before he had left, the entire Turtle Clan probably would have been massacred by the Tao Jingtian. "Tao Jingtian, I was just about to pay a visit to your Tao family and completely resolve the grievances between you and the Turtle Clan. But I never thought that you would be so smart and come to your death obediently," Jianqin growled. Tao Jingtian laughed aloud. "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you overestimate yourself. Old Man is standing right here. I'd like to see how you kill Old Man." He was indeed confident. His strength had reached the peak of the 8th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor and was infinitely close to the 9th heavenly layer. However, Tao Jingtian had gained a clear understanding of Jianqin's strength after the battle last time. Jianqin posed no threat to him at all. Jianqin sneered, "Then I'll show you how I'll kill you here today." Suddenly, a tremendous presence radiated from Jianqin. It pressed toward Tao Jingtian in an overwhelming manner. The expressions of Tao Jingtian and the 4 other holy emperors drastically changed. The presence from Jianqin was just too powerful. Even Tao Jingtian, who had reached the peak of the 8th heavenly layer, shivered inside. At that moment, they even felt like they were facing an expert on the same level as the Holy Emperor. Tao Jingtian and the 4 other holy emperors were no longer as composed as before. They all stood up in shock as disbelief filled their faces. Their hearts churned. "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, the Old Man has already overestimated you. But I never thought that he would still underestimate you in the end. I never thought that your strength would reach such a level in such a short amount of time. You're no weaker than the Old Man, but killing the Old Man with your current strength is still a pipe dream. If you don't believe me, let's go somewhere else." With that, Tao Jingtian did not stay any longer. He immediately flew off into the distance with the divine hall. He moved extremely quickly, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The 4 holy emperors of the Tao family's alliance entered the divine hall as soon as possible. Tao Jingtian took them with him. "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, follow me if you have the courage." Tao Jingtian's loud voice rang out from afar. Jianqin moved and used the illusory flash. He seemed to have fused with space as he chased after Tao Jingtian with great speed. He was no slower than Tao Jingtian. Jianqin's comprehension of the illusory flash had reached a whole new level in the Xianhuang microcosm. Coupled with the fact that his strength had increased, his speed when he used the illusory flash skyrocketed as well. Chapter 1329. After Jianqin and Tai Ta chased Tao Jingtian into the distance, the door to the divine hall of the 8 wastelands opened. Led by Qing Yishuan and the other holy emperor, a large number of clansmen surged out. "It's the ruler. The ruler has returned." "Fantastic, this is just fantastic. Did you see that?" As soon as the ruler returned, he made Tao Jingtian flee in fright. "He doesn't even dare to fight the ruler because he's afraid of death. Long live the ruler." "The ruler is invincible," the clansmen of the Turtle Clan excitedly exclaimed. Many of them felt admiration for the ruler, which had reached an unbelievable level. Qin Yishuan, Lan Jing, Xianpian Mocha's, and Taido's pale faces finally eased up slightly. Now that the ruler of the Turtle Clan, Jianchen, and his powerful friend had returned, they finally possessed the power to fend off the Tao family. They no longer needed to hide in the Divine Hall and suffer. The 5 of them stared in the direction that Jianchen had fled in with interest as they frowned. That's strange. Tao Zhengtian has been clamoring about fighting Jianchen today and personally killing Jianchen. Now that Jianchen has returned, why has he fled without even fighting? Even if he's worried that the 5 of them aren't our opponents, they still have a Divine Hall. As long as they hide in there, we can't do anything to them. There's no need for him to flee like that, Mocha said in doubt. The others nodded as well. They all felt that Tao Jingtian's actions were extremely strange. I understand. Tao Jingtian's intentions were probably to draw Jianchen away. I think he must have set up some sort of ambush against Jianchen, Qing Yishuan said with a heavy voice. Her complexion was very ugly. She had already completely offended the Tao family by joining the Turtle Clan against them. If Jianchen died, she could no longer remain in the Sea Realm. Suddenly, Qing Yishuan turned around and said to the clansmen behind her, "Everyone enter the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands. Tao Zhengtian has probably set up an ambush against Jianchen. We need to take the Divine Hall to rescue him, just in case something happens to him." The expressions of the clansmen of the Turtle Clan drastically changed. They all entered the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands as quickly as they could. Afterward, Qing Yishuan led the Divine Hall of the 8 Wastelands in pursuit of Jianchen with Lan Jing, Xianpian, Mocha's, Taido, and the other Holy Emperor clansmen. Tao Jingtian frantically fled with the Divine Hall. At this moment, his heart was like a turbulent ocean. He was unable to remain calm. He had been frightened by Jianchen's tremendous presence. Just from the presence alone, he could tell that Jianchen was no weaker than him. Jianchen might even be more powerful because even he shivered in fear before Jianchen's presence. Aside from Jianchen, a golden-skinned companion followed him. Tao Zhangtian could sense that the companion was still very powerful, no weaker than him. God damn it, how long has it been? How has the ruler of the Turtle Clan's strength increased so much? Tao Jingtian grumbled inside. The rate at which the ruler of the Turtle Clan's strength increased had completely exceeded his expectations. Jianchen and Ta pursued closely from behind. One of them turned into a blur, as if he had fused with space, crossing a great distance in a flash. The other shone with a dazzling golden light as he shot through the sky like a comet. The 2 of them were slightly faster than Tao Jingtian, so the distance between them gradually closed. Very soon, they had traveled over 100,000 kilometers from the territory of the Turtle Clan. They flew over large cities and passed through the territories of several large clans, causing a great disturbance along the way. Tao Jingtian, this place is far enough. Let these barren mountains be your burial ground. Jianchen suddenly bellowed out when they arrived above a barren mountain. He pushed the illusory flash to the limit as his speed suddenly skyrocketed. He caught up to Tao Jingtian in just a few seconds and stabbed out with a sword condensed from chaotic force. How is he so fast? Tao Jingtian was shocked, but he reacted quickly. With a boom, a vast amount of energy erupted from his body, condensing into an armor of energy in a single moment. He stabbed out with his trident as hard as he could. Boom! Tao Zhengtian's trident clashed with Jianchen's sword condensed from chaotic force. A terrifying ripple of energy immediately erupted, causing the mountains below to collapse. The entire mountain range was reduced to a mess. Tao Jingtian's face changed. With a grunt, he was blown far away like a broken kite. The trident in his hand dimmed and the armor of energy had almost shattered. The sword condensed from chaotic force in Jianchen's hand was still as powerful as before. Its power had not decreased at all. His gaze was cold as he said, "Tao Jingtian, your strength is still at the same level as before. You haven't improved at all in the past half a year. You're dreaming if you want to kill me with just this amount of strength." "Why, you dash!" Tao Jingtian was both shocked and angered. He pointed at Jianchen and almost became speechless. Afterward he roared out, "What happened in the past half a year? How did you become so powerful?" Tao Jingtian had already become fearful from the single clash. He discovered to his surprise that he was no longer the ruler of the Turtle Clan's opponent after half a year. He was extremely shocked and filled with disbelief. Tao Jingtian did not expect a reply from Jianchen. He turned around and flew into the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. He controlled the divine hall to flee as quickly as he could, hoping to reach the Serpent God Hall as soon as possible. Jianchen sneered as he followed behind at a steady pace with Tai Ta. Tao Jingtian had blocked the entrance of the Turtle Clan fearlessly despite knowing that he could not do anything to the Turtle Clan. He had purposefully angered the Turtle Clan in an attempt to draw him out. How could he not tell that Tao Jingtian was plotting something? However, Jianchen was filled with confidence after returning from the Xianhuang microcosm. No matter what Tao Jingtian was relying on, he no longer feared him. So he has the support of the Serpent God Hall. Very soon, Jianchen understood Tao Jingtian's intentions from where he had fled. He immediately smiled mysteriously. "Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, let me test you out this time. I'd like to see just how powerful the Holy Emperor is, and just how powerful he is compared to the Class 9 Xianhuang beasts of the Xianhuang microcosm," Jianchen thought. Now that his chaotic force had reached the 4th layer and he had comprehended sword origin, his strength had skyrocketed. Even if he had not forged the azulate swords, he still had some confidence in dealing with the Holy Emperor. Even if he could not defeat him, he could retreat safely. Jianchen was in no hurry to destroy Tao Jingtian's divine hall. Instead, he hid his strength and tailed him, heading toward the territory of the Serpent God Hall. The chase lasted for 2 whole days before Jianchen finally chased Tao Jingtian into the territory of the Serpent God Hall. The moment Jianchen set foot in there, Tao Jingtian almost cried from joy. He was tempted to roar at the sky. "Ha ha ha! Jianchen, your end has come. No matter how great your talent is, no matter how unprecedented you are, you will still die today." Tao Jingtian laughed aloud. His greatest enemy was finally about to die right before him. He felt indescribable joy. Chapter 1330. Jianchen sneered. He glanced back at the boundary that led to the territory of the Poseidon Divine Hall and calmly said, "Tao Jingtian, aren't you celebrating a little too early? It's really hard to say what the outcome will be today." Tao Jingtian stopped and did not continue to flee. However, he hid in the Divine Hall and did not dare to emerge. He believed that Jianchen could not do anything to him like this, so he chuckled aloud. "Jianchen, you're far too arrogant. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want in the sea realm just because your strength has increased by leaps and bounds? I admit that I, Tao Jingtian, am no longer your opponent, but who knows how many people are more powerful than me in the vast sea realm. Naturally, there will be plenty of experts who can kill you. As for now, you're already at death's door. No one can save you." As if to prove Tao Jingtian's words, the energy in the surroundings suddenly became violent as soon as Tao Jingtian finished speaking. A supreme power permeated the surroundings, growing stronger and denser, causing the sky to tremble. It seemed like a dragon was roaring furiously. However, Jianchen ignored all of this as if he did not sense the changes at all. Only Tai Ta, who stood beside him, stared at the sky in interest. His eyes were filled with powerful battle intent as the blood of the war god within him surged, causing his body to shine with a dazzling golden light. "You don't have the final say on what will happen to me today. However, one outcome has already been decided. And that's that you, Tao Jingtian, will definitely die today, Jian Qin sneered. Tao Jingtian began to laugh from his anger. He loudly said, Jian Qin, your arrogance and ignorance have far exceeded my expectations. I'm right here. If you have the ability, come and take my name. If you can't take my life today, I'll scatter the corpses of the Turtle Clan tomorrow and make rivers of blood flow. Heavy killing intent appeared in Jian Qin's eyes. He coldly said, Tao Jingtian, you'll never have the chance to do that. Even if the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple protects you today, I, Jian Qin, will still kill you. No one will be able to save you. With that, the supreme power in the surroundings immediately became even more violent. Boundless energy of the world gathered from all directions, condensing into a figure in the blink of an eye. It was a burly, middle-aged man with a beefy back. His face was very blurry, and his facial features were unclear. He stood in the surroundings and radiated with an extremely powerful presence. He was like a ruler that looked down on the world. Esteemed Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, quickly kill Jian Qin and eliminate all future problems. Tao Jingtian, who was hiding in the shrine, also discovered the figure completely condensed from energy in the sky. He immediately cried out in excitement. This was a clone that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had condensed, using his will to control the energy in the surroundings. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple would naturally disdain to personally take action against Jian Qin, who was not even at the level of Holy Emperor Paragon. In his opinion, a clone was enough to deal with any opponent below the level of Holy Emperor because he was a Holy Emperor. Furthermore, he had been in this realm for many years and had walked a very long path in this realm. King of the Turtle Clan, I'd like to see how you'll kill someone in front of me. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone spoke. His voice boomed through the surroundings like thunder. It was deafening, like the roar of a serpent dragon. Afterward, he extended a finger at Jian Qin. His finger elongated and rapidly expanded, turning into a huge strand of energy that pressed down on Jian Qin. Along the way, the energy in the surroundings surged into the finger, causing it to rapidly grow. At the same time, a supreme power that belonged to the Holy Emperor was hidden within. Jian Qin showed no fear. He called out, Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, a mere clone of yours does not have the ability to stop me, Jian Qin. Why don't you personally take action? Suddenly, Jian Qin's presence changed drastically. Like an unsheathed sword, he shone brightly. He had already reached sword origin, so he seemed to have become a sharp sword all of a sudden. Afterward, he charged toward the Hall Master's finger of energy with an unstoppable presence. Around him, there was a large amount of energy surrounding him. Around him, a ball of extremely bright white light appeared. It revolved around his body and radiated with surging sword chi. The sword chi surprised the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone. The sword chi was just too powerful and extraordinary. He had lived for several thousand years and read many secret texts. He knew a lot of things, but he had never seen such sharp sword chi. After comprehending the way of the sword chi Jian Qin used was no longer just condensed from energy. Instead, it was a way and application of laws. The energy finger condensed by the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone was unable to harm Jian Qin at all. With his body as a sword, Jian Qin smashed through the energy finger like a hot knife through butter. He had already approached the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone. Sword chi condensed in his hand as he stabbed toward the clone's head with lightning speed. There was a sliver of the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's soul here. As long as this soul was destroyed, the clone condensed from energy would disappear as well. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple could no longer maintain his composure. His expression changed drastically as a sliver of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He had never thought that Jian Qin had become so powerful. Although he was shocked, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's reaction was extremely fast. In an instant, his clone had retreated several hundred meters as if it had teleported, dodging Jian Qin's fatal strike. Although it was only a clone, if the soul within the clone was destroyed, it would still cause unimaginable damage to the clone. Even to the Holy Emperor, the damage to the soul was still the most fatal and difficult to heal. Jianqin seemed to have expected that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone would dodge. He immediately performed the illusory flash, leaving behind an afterimage. His real body also caught up to the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple as if he had teleported. With a flash of white light, the powerful sword chi in his hand had already pierced through the clone's head. This time the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone did not manage to dodge in time. Its head was pierced through, and more than half of the soul was destroyed. The remaining soul immediately fled into the distance. Jianqin extended a finger and shot out a finger-sized strand of sword chi towards the soul. He obliterated the small portion of the soul that had fled. At the same time, a miserable shriek suddenly rang out from the Supreme Divine Hall in the center of the Serpent God Hall's territory. Soon after, a tremendous presence radiated from the Divine Hall, like a primordial beast that had awakened from its slumber. It alarmed the entire Divine Hall. A figure quickly charged out from the Divine Hall, charging into the distance with a supreme presence. He vanished in a single moment, moving as fast as he could. It's the esteemed Hall Master. The Hall Master's true body hasn't appeared for several hundred years already. He's always been in seclusion. That shriek seemed to have come from the Hall Master. What happened to the great Hall Master? Did something happen to his cultivation? What exactly happened to the Palace Master? Why did he leave in such a rage? He even had such a strong killing intent. Could it be that someone had angered the Palace Master? In the Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall, many elders and emissaries discussed among themselves. They were filled with confusion and confusion. Even the esteemed Hall elders were the same. This is impossible. Tao Jingtian and the 4 Holy Emperor clans of the Alliance had personally witnessed this from within the Divine Hall. All of them became stunned and filled with disbelief. A Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's clone had actually been destroyed by the ruler of the Turtle Clan so easily. This was an extremely terrifying matter to them. Chapter 1331. That's impossible. The esteemed Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall is one of the 3 most powerful experts in the Sea Realm. He only needs to use a single clone to crush people like Hall Elders. So how can he be slain by the ruler of the Turtle Clan? We personally witnessed the strength of the ruler of the Turtle Clan a few months ago. He's only on par with me at most. How can he become so powerful in just a few short months? Is the ruler of the Turtle Clan an emperor as well? He was only hiding his strength when he fought us a few months ago. Could it be that the energy clone wasn't the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall at all, but one of the Hall Elders? The Holy Emperor allied with the Tao family all cried out within the Divine Hall. All of their faces became extremely ugly. Without any hesitation, Jianqin used the illusory flash to arrive before Tao Jingtian's Divine Hall in a flash after killing the Hall Master, Dragon God Temple's clone. The illusory flash was an extremely high-level movement technique. Even though Jianqin had reached the 4th layer of the chaotic body, the illusory flash was still useful to him. At the same time, his comprehension of the illusory flash had deepened once again in the Xianhuang microcosm, reaching an even higher level. However, Jianqin still felt like his comprehension of the technique had not reached the highest level. It was not like the heavens stealing fortune that Jianqin had obtained in his early years. Although the heavens stealing fortune could increase battle prowess by several times, its grade was just too low, so it was completely useless against saint rulers. Boom! Jianqin struck Tao Jingtian's Divine Hall with his palm. Although his palm was not as large as the Divine Hall, it was still enough to make the Divine Hall rumble. The entire Divine Hall violently shook. Jianqin pressed his hand against the Divine Hall, and a layer of powerful, silver-white sword chi appeared, covering his entire hand. The sword chi clashed with the Divine Hall, producing a series of cracking sounds. The tough divine hall began to crack rapidly in all directions with Jianshan's hand as the center. It was as dense as a spider's web. As the master of the divine hall, Tao Jingtian possessed complete control over the divine hall. Nothing that happened in the divine hall could escape his notice. He immediately paled in fright as his eyes became filled with fear. He knew exactly how powerful the divine hall's defenses were. Even when it had to endure the combined attacks of several hall elders, it could remain unscathed. Yet now, the divine hall that could not be breached by an emperor had actually cracked before the ruler of the Turtle Clan. This was simply shocking. Tao Jingtian was greatly shocked. His confidence from before had completely vanished. He did not dare to stay for long, nor did he dare to leave the divine hall. He immediately controlled the divine hall and hurried toward the supreme divine hall in the center of the Serpent God Hall's territory as quickly as possible. Tao Jingtian, do you think you can still leave now? Jianshan sneered as the killing intent in his eyes became even more intense. He used the illusory flash and left behind a blurry afterimage as he pursued with extreme speed. Jianshan's current speed was far greater than before. He arrived in front of the divine hall in a single moment. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and chaotic force filled his entire arm. It radiated with a grayish-black light and dazzling sword chi. Boom! Jianshan's fist hurtled forward with an unstoppable force, causing the surrounding space to violently tremble. The punch was extremely powerful, shattering the majestic door of the divine hall with a single punch. The entire divine hall was blown away. All the clansmen who had allied with the Tao family hid within the divine hall. The entire divine hall violently shook from Jianshan's tyrannical punch. All the people hiding in the divine hall staggered and almost lost their footing. Even the Holy Emperor swayed a few times. Oh no! The door of the divine hall has been shattered by the ruler of the Turtle Clan. He can actually destroy the divine hall. A holy emperor who had allied with the Tao family cried out. His eyes were filled with fear at first before gradually becoming filled with despair. The other Saint Kings were the same. All of them had thought of the same thing. Since the ruler of the Turtle Clan possessed the ability to destroy divine halls, did that not mean that he was an emperor? Even if he was not an emperor, he still possessed the battle prowess of an emperor. Tao Jingtian's face paled. He controlled the divine hall to fly into the sky with gritted teeth before quickly descending. He used the foundation of the divine hall to crush down on Jianshan, because the foundation was the toughest part of the divine hall aside from the door. The divine hall had already expanded to several thousand meters in size. When it fell from the sky, it immediately became like a dark cloud, casting a huge shadow. Powerful divine hall energy flowed through the foundation, radiating with great pressure. It caused the space below to ripple and the gravity to greatly increase. Jianshan stood below the divine hall and raised his head to look at the sky. A gleam of light flickered through his eyes before he raised a hand to stop the divine hall from falling from the sky. Bang! The moment his hand came in contact with the divine hall, it immediately produced a heavy rumble. The divine hall came to a halt as Jianshan stood in the air, holding the huge divine hall with a single hand. He stood as still as a mountain and did not fall at all. The true advantage of the divine hall was its toughness. It did not possess much offensive power, so Jianshan was completely capable of stopping it with his current strength. After all, he was not a regular fighter. He possessed the chaotic body, so his body was extremely tough. A white light flashed on Jianshan's arm before he suddenly shook it. He immediately threw the divine hall into the sky, and thick cracks appeared on the sturdy foundation of the divine hall. They were all caused by sword chi. Suddenly, Jianshan shot into the sky like an arrow. He was enveloped by a layer of powerful sword chi. At that moment, he seemed to have become a sword. His body was a powerful sword as he directly slammed into the foundation of the divine hall. With a boom, Jianshan immediately created a hole in the foundation of the divine hall. He was enveloped by a layer of powerful sword chi as he charged into the divine hall. Afterwards, he shot straight up, smashing through the various obstructions before flying out from the top of the divine hall. He had pierced through the entire divine hall, creating a transparent hole. Jianchen had already pulled Tao Jingtian out of the divine hall by the neck. At this moment, Tao Jingtian did not seem to have returned to his senses. A sliver of confusion appeared in his eyes. However, he soon understood his current situation. He immediately became shocked as he stared at Jianchen, who was only inches away from him. He was utterly shocked. Jianchen held Tao Jingtian by the neck like he was holding up a chick. His eyes were cold and filled with heavy killing intent. He sneered, "Tao Jingtian, I've said before that no one can save you today." Tao Jingtian opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he could not say anything with his neck in Jianchen's grip. Afterwards, he began to vomit mouthfuls of blood. His face was sheet white, and he became covered in blood very soon. The chaotic force had already entered Tao Jingtian's body. The chaotic force of the fourth layer was so powerful that even Jianchen's chaotic body could not endure it, let alone Tao Jingtian, whose body was nowhere near as tough as Jianchen's. The chaotic force wreaked havoc in Tao Jingtian's body, reducing his organs to dust. Even his bones, flesh, and blood had been destroyed. His entire body was like a pile of mud. At this moment, 4 figures charged out of the divine hall. They all fled into the distance as quickly as they could. The 4 holy emperors hiding in the divine hall had already fled by themselves when they saw that the situation was bad. "Tai-Ta, stop them for me," Jianchen said to Tai-Ta. Tai-Ta said nothing. He immediately turned into a golden streak of light and chased after them with lightning speed. He used the mysteries of war, the celestial chase. It was an extremely high-level battle skill that was no weaker than the illusory flash. It was a secret technique that only warring gods could use. When Tai-Tai used it, he actually moved even faster than Jianchen. With a flash of golden light, Tai-Tai had already caught up to one of them. He heavily injured the Holy Emperor with a casual punch before catching up to the next person. Jianchen did not move at all. The 4 holy emperors were all captured by Tai-Ta alone. To prevent them from resisting, they were all heavily injured by Tai-Ta. "Please spare us, ruler. We didn't want to become enemies with the Turtle clan. We were forced by Tao Jingtian," one of the 4 pleaded. He knew that it was impossible for him to escape today, so he did not want to die like this. Chapter 1332. Tao Jingtian's divine hall had been pierced through and was extremely heavily damaged. Its defenses were nowhere near as powerful as before. Jianchen condensed a few strands of sword qi and sent them toward the divine hall. Every single strand of sword qi was not as powerful as an attack from the Holy Emperor, so they cut Tao Jingtian's divine hall to pieces, causing it to fall to the ground. There were several tens of thousands of core disciples and experts in the divine hall. Most of the outer disciples and unimportant clansmen had already been separated by them so that they could hide. Now that the divine hall had been destroyed, the several tens of thousands of people hiding in there were immediately exposed. There were even several dozen saint rulers among them. Although the people of the Tao family alliance had no idea what had happened in the outside world, they had sensed that something was wrong when they were in the divine hall. Now that they saw the indestructible divine hall shatter, they immediately confirmed their suspicions. Immediately, a few people with faster reactions fled into the distance as quickly as they could. The several dozen saint rulers were the first to flee. Jianchen expanded his soul and enveloped a radius of several thousand kilometers. He used his soul to lock onto the saint rulers in the crowd. Extending a finger, he shot out strands of finger-sized sword qi. He had shot out several dozen strands of sword qi in an extremely short amount of time, killing all the fleeing saint rulers. The saint rulers were unable to resist the sword qi that Jianchen had condensed after reaching sword origin. They were all slain by a single strand of sword qi. In the end, none of the several dozen saint rulers from the Tao family's alliance managed to escape. They were all wiped out. Jianchen did not kill all the people below Saint Ruler. He stood at a completely different level now, so he was not interested in dealing with these people. Moreover, if he killed too many people, he would be punished by Celestial's decay. However, the alliance was destined to decline after losing the Saint Rulers and the Holy Emperor because there were far more experts in the Sea Realm than on the Tian-Yuan continent. Without a Saint Ruler or the Holy Emperor, it would be very difficult for an organization to develop. With a wave of his hand, several dozen space rings flew into Genshin's hand. These were all rings that belonged to the Saint Rulers of the Tao family. They contained their entire life's worth of savings. It was a very great fortune to the Turtle Clan. After that, Genshin scanned the dilapidated Divine Hall with his origin spirit and searched every corner. But he didn't find anything of value. Genshin, the true body of the Hall Master, Dragon God Temple, has arrived, Iron Tower said in a muffled voice. His eyes were filled with an intense battle intent as he looked into the distance. There was no need for Iron Tower to say anything, as Genshin could feel it as well. There was a very powerful aura in front of them that was rapidly approaching. I can kill Class 9 Shenhuang beasts in the Shenhuang microcosm, and I've even killed a Class 10 Shenhuang beast. I wonder how much more powerful the Holy Emperor is compared to Class 9 Shenhuang beasts. Genshin thought inside. He was eager to try. Right now, he wanted to find a Holy Emperor to test his true strength. Although he could kill Class 9 Shenhuang beasts in the Shenhuang microcosm, Shenhuang beasts did not possess any intelligence or abilities. Their battle experience was nowhere near as great as that of battle-hardened fighters. Killing Shenhuang beasts only meant that his attacks were no weaker than the Holy Emperor's, but his overall strength was still unknown. This was because the Holy Emperor was even more difficult to deal with than Class 9 Shenhuang beasts. He was agile and had comprehended the mysteries of the world, grasping many abilities and secret techniques. His battle prowess was incomparable to the Shenhuang beasts that only possessed brute strength. A tremendous pressure surged over from up ahead, rapidly expanding through the air. Wherever it passed, the space there would become sticky, like a swamp. A figure shot over with lightning-like speed from the distant horizon. He had already fused with the surrounding space, so his flight was completely silent. He was extremely fast. In just a few seconds, the figure had crossed several dozen kilometers and arrived before Genshin at an unbelievable speed. Immediately, a tremendous pressure filled the entire region, causing the surroundings to tremble and the ground below to sink. Genshin felt his body tense up. His clothes immediately clung to his body. At that moment, he felt like he was carrying a mountain on his back. It was extremely heavy, and even breathing became much more difficult than usual. The Holy Emperor really is more powerful than Class 9 Shenhuang beasts, Genshin thought. Genshin shivered inside. Although this was not the first time he had faced a Holy Emperor, he gained an even clearer understanding of the strength of the Holy Emperor this time. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, how bold of you! The Hall Master of Dragon God, temple bathed in blue light. All that could be seen was a blurry figure. His voice was icy cold, filled with irrepressible anger and killing intent. He had sent a clone to kill Genshin because he had underestimated Genshin's strength. Not only had he failed, but his clone had even been slain, causing his soul to become extremely injured. To the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, who reigned over a region, this was a humiliation that could never be washed away. It made him extremely furious. Genshin spat out strands of chaotic force from his chaotic Niden, which filled every inch of his body. He unleashed the powerful defenses of chaotic force to block the pressure from the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. He calmly said, "Esteemed Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, I never thought that you would arrive so quickly. I failed to stop in time and accidentally destroyed one of your clones. I even dispersed the strand of soul that tried to escape. I shouldn't have caused any harm to the esteemed Hall Master, right?" 2 bolts of lightning immediately shot out from the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's eyes when he heard that. It was extremely shocking. He furiously said, "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you're not allowed to act so recklessly before me. Even if your strength has increased, you're only slightly more powerful than an ant before me. Since you've stepped into the territory of the Serpent God Hall today, your soul will be buried here for all eternity." With that, the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall extended his hand towards Jian Chen. The moment he extended his hand, Jian Chen's expression changed. As soon as he extended his hand, it immediately turned into the claw of a serpent dragon. It extended endlessly and appeared before Jian Chen in an instant. Isn't it a little too early to say that? I still don't know if you can keep me here today, and it's even more impossible for me to bury my soul here. Jian Chen sneered. Even with his plentiful experience in killing Class 9 Shenhuang beasts, he still dared not to be careless before a holy emperor. He immediately pushed the advantage of his chaotic body to the limit. With a squeeze of his right hand, a dazzling, white sword qi condensed in the air, stabbing toward the claw with lightning-like speed. Ding! The two collided and produced a metallic sound. Jian Chen's sword qi had only left behind a thin mark on the claw. It did not possess absolute suppression like it did against Tao Jingtian's divine hall. After the strike, Jian Chen rapidly retreated. Only after flying several kilometers did he disperse the great force from the claw. He became very stern. Through this clash, he knew that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's original body was many times more powerful than the clone from before. What tough claws! My attack only left behind a mark, Jian Chen thought. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. However, what Jian Chen did not know was that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple was even more shocked than him. If one could see his face, they would discover that his face was filled with disbelief and disbelief. He stared at the speck of blue blood on his hand in a daze and did not return to his senses for quite some time. Chapter 1333. Why, you're already an emperor. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple involuntarily cried out. At that moment, he was extremely shocked because he could still clearly remember that when Jian Chen first appeared in the Sea Realm several years ago, his Serpent God Hall had only sent 4 divine generals to chase him down. Yet now, Jian Chen had already reached the same height as him and could even injure him. It was impossible for him not to be shocked. At that moment, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple even believed that Jian Chen had always been an emperor and that he had purposefully hidden his strength in the past, or that his strength had declined due to his injuries. This was because no one had ever grown so quickly before. At the very least, he had never heard of such a thing. No, you're not an emperor yet. The energy you used earlier was very strange. What was it? It was so powerful. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple growled. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at Jian Chen closely. Very soon, he discovered that something was wrong. Jian Chen sneered. It doesn't matter what kind of energy it is. What matters is that the energy can harm you right now. Jian Chen formed a sword with his fingers and entered sword origin. He condensed sword qi in the air, and a 2-meter-long strand of sword qi condensed out of nowhere. It shone with bright white light as it shot toward the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple with lightning speed. The sword qi was condensed from laws. It was away. Even though Jian Chen had only grasped the basics, the power it displayed was extremely great. When the sword qi shot out, the powerful sword intent that permeated the surroundings seemed to transform the surrounding air into strands of sword qi. Standing in the air, it was like standing in an ocean constructed from countless strands of sword qi. It gave off an abnormally sharp feeling from all directions. This time, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple could see the process of Jian Chen condensing the energy even more clearly. This made him extremely surprised. He originally thought that Jian Chen would struggle to use the energy or even pay a certain price. He never thought that Jian Chen would be able to use the energy so easily without any change in expression at all. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple became stern. He no longer dared to be careless like before. A tremendous amount of energy surged out from his body, making him seem like a ball of blue flames. Afterward, it condensed into a blue serpent dragon that was several hundred meters long. The blue serpent dragon furiously roared at the sky. Its voice shook the surroundings and caused ripples in space. The energy of the world became chaotic, basically affecting the entire territory of the Serpent God Hall and alarming countless people. Afterward, it opened its huge mouth and bit at the sword chi that shot toward it. Genshin's sword chi was swallowed by the blue serpent dragon. In the next moment, with a great boom, the blue serpent dragon's head was blasted into nothingness. Even the rest of its body became riddled with cracks. Terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing the space there to tremble violently. It seemed like it was about to crack open. If it were not for the fact that they were in the sea realm and were protected by Poseidon's barrier, which made the space there extremely stable, the two of them probably would have reduced the surroundings several kilometers into darkness. Even with that being the case, it had almost reached the limit of what the space there could endure. With a single movement, Genshin left behind an afterimage. He had already used the illusory flash to charge at the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple through the storm of energy. His face was emotionless, but his gaze was sharp. Powerful white light flickered in his right hand, combining with chaotic force to form a sword that he slashed at the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple did not panic in the face of danger. He crossed his arms before his chest, using the Holy Emperor's power to form a shield before him. After probing earlier, he gained some understanding of the power Genshin used. Apart from having an additional sharpness, it was on the same level as the Holy Emperor's power. Boom! With an explosion, Genshin's sword chi landed on the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple shield. Spiderweb-like cracks immediately appeared on the shield before it loudly shattered. However, Genshin's attack had been blocked by the shield. However, at this moment, the space suddenly froze, binding Genshin's body tightly. He was unable to move. This was the frozen space of a holy emperor. It was far tougher than the space of any holy emperor at great perfection. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, your power that's comparable to an emperor's has already been exhausted. You don't have the time to condense new power at all. I'd like to see how you block my attack. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple sneered. Killing intent filled his body as his right hand turned into a serpent's claw once again, reaching toward Genshin's heart with lightning-like speed. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He could already tell that Genshin would have to condense new power every time he used it. As a result, he had first condensed a shield of energy to block Genshin's sword chi before heavily injuring Genshin before he could condense new sword chi. A destructive light flashed through Genshin's eyes. His entire body glowed as he was enveloped by a layer of light, protecting his body. Although his body had been sealed, condensing sword chi in the air did not require him to move at all. All he needed was a thought. As long as his soul remained, he could control the sword chi at any time. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's serpent's claw struck Genshin's protective sword chi with a powerful force. When the sharp claw and the sword chi collided, a crisp sound immediately rang out. The tough, sharp claw was instantly covered with scratches. However, it was clearly difficult to block the might of the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's claw with just the protective sword chi. Genshin's protective sword chi was penetrated, and the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's sharp claw continued to stab toward his heart. However, the might of the claw had already been weakened by the protective sword chi. PFFF! The serpent's claw pierced through Genshin's body and into his chest, digging out a bloody heart. Genshin's face turned pale. He didn't even make a sound. At the moment when the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's claw pierced into his chest, his right hand struck toward the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple at lightning speed. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple revealed a look of disdain. What he was really afraid of was the sword chi that Jianchen had condensed. This was because only that sword chi could injure him. Without the help of that sword chi, he wouldn't have taken Jianchen seriously at all. Although he had guessed that the might of Jianchen's punch was also very strong, his original form was that of a serpent. His physical body was very strong. Therefore, he didn't take it to heart at all. Bam! The strength of Jianchen's punch was extremely strong. When it landed on the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's body, a muffled sound could be heard. Chapter 1334. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple let out a muffled groan as his body trembled violently for a few times. A trace of blue liquid flowed out from the corner of his mouth. This was the color of his blood. A powerful surge of sword chi wreaked havoc in the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's body. Not only was it destroying his internal organs, flesh and blood, but it was also rapidly depleting the vitality in his body. Although he possessed an extremely powerful physical body, the defensive power of his physical body could only be fully displayed on the outside of his body. The inside of his body was still very weak. When faced with a powerful sword chi that was not any weaker than the power of a great emperor, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's internal organs seemed as weak as tofu. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple let out a furious roar toward the sky. The roar of a flood dragon could be faintly heard, shaking the area within a radius of several 100,000 miles. A surge of extremely powerful energy erupted from his body. At this moment, he had already used all the power in his body to suppress the surge of sword chi in his body. His left hand turned into a flood dragon's claw and grabbed at Jianchen's head. At the same time, he once again controlled the space to restrain Jianchen's movements. He wanted to destroy Jianchen's body and soul with a single strike. In this exchange of blows, although he had taken out Jianchen's heart, Jianchen had also severely injured him. Losing a heart was not a serious injury to any holy emperor. After recuperating for a period of time and using some heavenly and earthly treasures, the heart would quickly grow back. However, there was a surge of sword chi that Jianchen had left in his body that was wreaking havoc, forcing him to use all his strength to suppress this surge of sword chi. Therefore, in this exchange of blows, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had suffered injuries that were even more serious than Jianchen's due to a moment of carelessness. This made him extremely furious. Jianchen was surrounded by a layer of dazzling light. It enveloped his entire body, causing him to become enveloped by an extremely dazzling white light. It shone brightly, making him seem like a miniature sun. This protective sword ray was a wondrous use that Jianchen had discovered on his way back from the Shenhuang microcosm. It was like a layer of hedgehog armor. Not only was it covered in spikes that would injure the opponent upon contact, it also possessed a certain level of defensive power. With the protection of the protective sword rays, Jianchen was no longer afraid of the Holy Emperor's space-freezing divine ability. When the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's second space-freezing divine ability was formed, it was shattered by Jianchen's protective sword rays. After that, Jianchen punched out with all his strength. It was ferocious and domineering, carrying an indomitable momentum as it struck towards the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's Jiao Dragon Claw. Boom! The fist and claw collided, erupting with a deafening boom. Violent storms of energy shook up the entire region of space, causing it to tremble violently. There were also strands of chaotic force and a few strands of sword chi mixed within the storm. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple and Jianchen were both blown away. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple stood several 100 meters away. The blue light around him surged, becoming brighter and brighter. He was making the best use of his time to destroy the strand of sword chi in his body. On the other hand, Jianchen was blown several thousand meters away before he could regain control of his body. The protective sword rays on his body dimmed a little, but in the next moment they regained their radiance. His left hand was already badly mutilated. In this head-on collision with the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, he was clearly at a disadvantage. The blood on Genshin's palm was rapidly disappearing. All the blood had returned to his body through the wound. Even the wound was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, other than his injured palm. Even his chest, which was pierced through by the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, was also healing. The terrifying recovery ability of the chaotic force was revealed. In a great battle, it would play a crucial role. Suddenly, the yuan qi between heaven and earth rapidly gathered from all directions, condensing around the Hall Master Dragon God Temple. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple had already cleared the sword qi in his body. He waved his hands in front of him, gathering the essence from all directions. He performed a supreme, secret technique with a terrifying aura. Genshin was shocked. He could already sense that the Hall Master Dragon God Temple was actually gathering the yuan qi of heaven and earth within a radius of 100,000 miles. Even with the strength of the Holy Emperor, he had to expend so much effort to perform a secret technique. He couldn't imagine how powerful it would be. Genshin no longer hesitated and took the initiative to make the first move. He performed the illusory flash and quickly closed in on the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, using all his strength to stop the Hall Master Dragon God Temple from continuing. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple retreated rapidly, not coming into contact with Genshin at all. However, Genshin was in hot pursuit. His body turned into a series of afterimages as he rapidly closed in. His speed wasn't any slower than the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple was in the midst of performing a supreme, secret technique and couldn't stop at all. Seeing that he couldn't shake off Genshin's entanglement, he immediately transformed into a half-human, half-flood dragon. The lower half of his body was that of a snake, while the upper half of his body was that of a human. He swung his tail and attacked Genshin with lightning speed. Genshin didn't dodge and slashed at the flood dragon's tail with a sword cheese. A crisp sound rang out, and several tens of palm-sized scales fell to the ground. A deep cut appeared on the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's tail, causing blood to flow out continuously. However, the Hall Master Dragon God Temple didn't seem to be affected at all. He continued to use his tail to block Genshin while waving his hands in front of his chest, forming different hand signs as he continued to perform the secret technique. The power of this secret technique was extremely great. Even with his strength, he needed some time to prepare before he could execute it. Today was the first time he had used this secret technique since he had mastered it. He was actually facing an opponent who wasn't even in the Emperor realm. The battle prowess Genshin had displayed and his unprecedented talent had already caused the Hall Master Dragon God Temple to feel fear. To be able to fight against a Holy Emperor before reaching the Holy Emperor realm, if he were to become a Holy Emperor, how many people in the world would be a match for him? Therefore, the Hall Master Dragon God Temple had already made up his mind. No matter how heavy the price he had to pay today, he had to eliminate Genshin. Boom! 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 The Hall Master Dragon God Temple's tail turned into a blur as it rapidly swept toward Genshin. When it struck the ground, it would produce heavy thuds. Every single strike would create a bottomless hole in the ground. Dust filled the surroundings as sand filled the air. The entire sky had become hazy from their battle. Genshin had been struck several times, causing blood to ooze from the corner of his mouth. He was quite injured, so he was unable to stop the Hall Master Dragon God Temple. On the other hand, the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's tail was covered in blood as well. A large portion of its scales had fallen off, having been reduced to a bloody mess by the sword qi. In the distance, Taita stared at the battle between Genshin and the Hall Master Dragon God Temple with shining eyes. Battle intent burned in his eyes as he murmured, This magical beast is also a Class 9 magical beast, but it's even more difficult to deal with than the Class 9 Xianhuang beasts of the Xianhuang microcosm. Fighting an intelligent magical beast really is much more difficult than fighting an unintelligent magical beast. I need to take action. A dazzling golden light shone from Tai Ta's body. A battle axe appeared in his hand as he swung it toward the Hall Master Dragon God Temple. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple was surprised. Although he had discovered Tai Ta's existence long ago, the presence Tai Ta gave off was only that of a 16th-star expert. As a result, he did not take him seriously. However, he never thought that Tai Ta would actually be a freak, able to unleash an attack that was no weaker than an emperor's at the 16th-star level. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple dodged Tai Ta's attack. Then, a blur flashed by as his tail whipped toward Tai Ta with lightning speed. Chapter 1335. Being injured in the first clash did not dampen Tai Ta's fighting spirit. Instead, it made the burning desire to fight in his chest boil even more. The brilliant golden light from his body became even more intense and dazzling. It illuminated the entire sea region and dyed the blue sky golden. At this moment, Tai Ta, Jianqin, and the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple looked like three little suns emitting different colors from afar. Each of them shone with boundless radiance, illuminating the horizon. It was a magnificent sight. Profound heavenly war, mortal breaker. Tai Ta let out a loud roar. An extremely powerful battle intent was emitted from his body, permeating the heavens and the earth. He held his axe with both hands, and the golden battle axe emitted boundless golden light. Terrifying energy fluctuated, causing the space around the battle axe to become very unstable. The battle axe turned into a dazzling golden light and was swung out by Tai Ta, directly chopping towards the upper half of the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's body. He wanted to stop the secret technique that Tai Ta was performing. At the same time, Jianqin also unleashed an extremely powerful attack. A 3-meter-long sword aura appeared in his hand, emitting an intense white light as it shot towards the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple from the other side. Mixed within the sword aura were streams of chaotic energy. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's expression finally turned serious. Regardless of whether it was Jianqin or Tai Ta, even though they had yet to become Holy Emperor, the battle prowess they displayed was abnormally terrifying. They were not any weaker than a great emperor. Right now, it was as if he was fighting against two experts of the same level. Moreover, they were not two regular great emperors. Although Jianqin's sword aura was on the same level as an emperor's force, it contained a sharpness that an emperor's force did not possess. This made it slightly more powerful than an emperor's force. On the other hand, Tai Ta's battle intent was able to affect the soul of a person. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's soul could not help but tremble a few times under the impact of the battle intent. He felt his will to fight crumble bit by bit. Apart from that, the profound heavenly war that Tai Ta used was an ability that surpassed Saint Tier battle skills. It was extremely powerful. With Tai Ta's current strength, it was even more terrifying than some great emperors who had just become Holy Emperor. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple swung his tail and whipped it in the air. He wanted to use his tail to block Jianqin and Tai Ta's attacks. The secret technique he used was at its final stage. Iron Tower's battle axe struck the tail of the dragon, leaving a terrible wound. Blue blood sputtered in the air like a burst of fireworks. Jianqin's sword aura shot towards the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's head from another direction. It was extremely fast and powerful. In the end, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple dodged Jianqin's fatal attack. Although the sword aura did not hit his head, his body was penetrated. The sword aura emitted a dazzling light as it pierced through the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple's back and came out from his chest. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple let out a groan as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His face had already turned pale. The moment the sword aura pierced through his body, another strand of sword aura remained in his body and wreaked havoc. Today, all of you will die. Don't even think of leaving this place. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple roared at the sky. This battle was a great humiliation to him. He could not accept the fact that he had been reduced to such a wretched state by two juniors who had not even reached the level of the Holy Emperor with his status. A tremendous pressure radiated from the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, permeating the surroundings. Even the experts several 100,000 kilometers away could sense it clearly. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had finally completed his secret technique. A huge serpent dragon soared through the sky. It was over 10,000 meters long and gave off an extremely terrifying pressure. Not only did it alarm countless experts in the territory of the Serpent God Temple, but even the experts in the territories of the Heaven's Spirit Hall and Poseidon Hall that were closer could sense it. All the experts paled in fright. They all stared at the surroundings from afar because the pressure made them feel fear from the depths of their souls. There were even a few people whose legs began to tremble. They wanted to kneel down involuntarily. The huge serpent dragon soared through the sky. Every single scale on its body flickered with light. It roared at the sky in a deafening manner before coldly staring at Jianqin and Taita. Jianqin and Taita shivered inside. They both stopped attacking and stared at the huge serpent dragon in doubt. They had faced Class 10 Xianhuang beasts before, so they had a certain understanding of their strength. However, the presence from the serpent made them feel like they were facing a Class 10 Xianhuang beast. Several streaks of light shot over from afar. In the end, they all stopped several dozen kilometers away, observing the battle from afar. They were the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall. Every single one of them was at great perfection as a holy emperor. They had tailed the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple ever since he left, so they had only arrived now. This is the Serpent Ancestor. He was the most powerful Hall Master of our Serpent God Hall in ancient times. His talent was exceptional, reaching peak emperor in just 2,000 years of cultivation. He was only a step away from surpassing that level of cultivation, but it's a pity that he failed to break through in the remaining 8,000 years. In the end, he died with regret. The Hall Master is actually using a secret technique to summon the Serpent Ancestor spirit, allowing the Serpent Ancestor to return to his former glory. A Hall Elder of the Serpent God Hall cried out. His face was filled with disbelief. He was unable to imagine just how terrifying of an opponent his respected Hall Master had encountered, for the Hall Master to use such a technique. Who are the two people fighting the Hall Master? They can actually force the Hall Master to use such a technique. Are they also emperors? That's impossible. Aside from the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall and the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall, there are no other emperors in the sea realm. Judging from their presences and pulses of energy, they're not the two Hall Masters at all. Oh no, the Hall Master is injured. The serpent's tail is covered in blood. It's a bloody mess. A few Hall Elders with great authority in the Serpent God Hall all cried out. Shock filled their faces. Since when had two experts like that appeared in the sea realm aside from the two Hall Masters? They had actually reduced the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple to such a horrible state. After all, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had remained an emperor for quite a few years. He had traveled a very long path. The Serpent Ancestor suddenly opened its mouth and sucked at Jianqin and Taita. Immediately, an extremely terrifying suction appeared. Jianqin and Taita were lifted off the ground uncontrollably. They began to fly toward the Serpent Ancestor's mouth, unable to break free no matter what they did. Mysteries of war, destruction. Taita bellowed out. With a blinding golden light, his supreme battle intent fused with his axe as an invisible force, sending a resplendent, golden axe directly toward the Serpent Ancestor. Jianqin also struck out as hard as he could. Silver-white light enveloped his body, and with a wave of his hand, He shot out a 3-meter-long sword chi to attack the serpent ancestor with Taita. However, their attacks failed to harm the serpent ancestor. The serpent ancestor had reached the peak of Holy Emperor in the past and had remained at that level for 8,000 years. Its strength had reached a shocking level. Even though its true body was dead, the heroic spirit that the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had summoned was still extremely powerful. Cut through the space around us. Its suction is based on space. That way, it can stop us from being sucked into its stomach, said Jianqin. When he struck out earlier, he had shaken up the space around him. He could clearly sense that the suction force had weakened slightly. Jianqin was extremely shocked by the serpent ancestor's strength. He did not want to be sucked into its stomach, no matter what. After all, this was not a mindless Xianhuang beast. It was being secretly controlled by the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. Taita no longer hesitated after hearing Jianqin's words. He immediately attacked the space before him with his full strength with Jianqin, causing it to violently tremble. Cracks had even appeared. However, this method was indeed effective. It allowed them to break free from the serpent ancestor's suction. The two of them then circled around the serpent ancestor and attacked it as hard as they could. Chapter 1336. Clang! Clang! When Jianqin and Taita's attacks landed on the serpent ancestor's body, they actually produced two clear, metallic sounds. Although the body of the serpent ancestor had been condensed from the energy of the world in a radius of several 100,000 kilometers by the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, it possessed a sliver of the serpent ancestor's heroic spirit, allowing the body to possess a certain level of its former self. The toughness of its body had reached a shocking level, preventing Jianqin and Taita from harming it at all. It was like the ancient serpent ancestor had reappeared. It was extremely terrifying. However, a secret technique was a secret technique after all. It could only unleash a certain amount of the serpent ancestor's might in the past. It could not unleash its supreme strength in the past. Although Jianqin and Taita were unable to harm the serpent ancestor at all, they could clearly sense that the tremendous amount of energy in the serpent ancestor's body was being rapidly depleted. Jianqin and Taita remained silent. They continued to attack the serpent ancestor's body with all their strength to deplete its energy. They both understood that once the energy used to condense the serpent ancestor's body was depleted, the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's secret technique would be destroyed as well. The serpent ancestor's body would vanish from the world. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple, who had entered the head of the serpent ancestor, knew what Jianqin and Taita were thinking. He immediately sneered. This secret technique was personally left behind by the serpent ancestor in the past. It's the greatest treasure of our serpent god temple. I've spent so much effort to use this supreme secret technique. So how can it be destroyed so easily by you? The flood dragon ancestor's body flipped in the air. It was as if its body was too big, as if it could fill up the entire world. When its body flipped, it immediately caused the wind and clouds to surge. Gusts of wind blew, and muffled thunder could be heard. This was the reaction caused by the friction between its body and the air when it flipped too quickly. With a flip, the serpent ancestor appeared in the sky. It was not far from the barrier that protected the sea region. It extended its claw, enveloping a radius of several hundred meters and locking down the entire region. It struck towards Jianqin and Taita with lightning speed. As the claw descended, a mysterious power permeated the surroundings, causing ripples in space. Jianqin and Taita's faces changed slightly. Although their bodies were not locked down, they felt like they had sunk into a quagmire. Their movements became abnormally sluggish. Even with the protective light from the sword was unable to nullify the sluggishness. The serpent ancestor's claw fell from the sky like a hot knife through butter. Jianqin and Taita were unable to dodge it, so they could only attack the approaching claw with their full strength. With a great boom, Jianchen and Tai Ta's attacks landed on the claw, but they were unable to stop it from falling. In the end, the claw pierced through the space they stood in and slammed into the ground heavily. It caused the ground to tremble violently, causing countless cracks to appear. It was like an earthquake had occurred, spreading to several 100,000 kilometers away. A huge, bottomless claw mark appeared on the ground. Jianchen and Tai Ta had vanished, having been struck into the pit. Only the serpent ancestor remained in the surroundings. A ball of scorching golden and white light shone from the bottomless pit. Jianchen and Tai Ta were bathed in golden and white light as they flew out at the same time. The light was clearly much dimmer than before. The two of them were rather pale, and blood dripped from the corner of their mouths. They were in horrible shape, having been heavily injured. A tremendous pressure crushed down from the sky. The serpent ancestor's huge tail swung down with lightning speed. Just the wind pressure alone caused the ground to sink. Every single strike from the serpent ancestor was no small matter. Jianchen and Tai Ta immediately dodged as best as they could, flying in opposite directions. This was an arduous battle, although Jianchen and Tai Ta could easily kill Class 9 Xianhuang beasts in the Xianhuang microcosm, and even peak Class 9 Xianhuang beasts would not be too difficult to deal with. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple was an intelligent, holy emperor who knew many secret techniques and battle experience. He was far more difficult to deal with than the peak Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. Jianchen and Tai Ta worked together and engaged in an intense battle against the Hall Master Dragon God Temple in the sky. Their battle was earth-shattering, and the terrifying shockwaves from the battle had destroyed a radius of 100,000 kilometers. The ground was a mess, and it had already changed beyond recognition. Jianchen and Tai Ta were heavily injured several times. If it were anyone else, they probably would have collapsed long ago. However, one of them possessed the chaotic body, while the other possessed the war god's body. Both of them were extraordinary and extremely powerful, which was why they could last until now and remain as ferocious as they were at their peak condition. The three of them fought for half a day without resting. By now, the Hall Master Dragon God Temple had become rather exhausted. Ever since he had become an emperor, he had experienced extremely few battles. He had no idea how long it had been since he had last fought such an intense battle. While he was furious, he also felt extremely helpless. This was because both Jianchen and Tai Ta were powerful enough. The two of them seemed like they could not be killed at all. Their vitality was endless, and they could endure no matter how heavily injured they were. Their battle prowess did not decrease at all. Quite a few people had gathered in the surroundings. Their battle had alarmed half of the Sea Realm. Not only had experts from the Serpent God Hall hurried over, but even people from the Heavens, Spirit Hall, and Poseidon Hall had come to watch. Without any exception, all of them were Holy Emperor. They all stood several dozen kilometers away. None of them dared to get any closer, because even they could not endure the shock waves from the battle. A majestic divine hall stood in the sky. It was the divine hall that Jianchen had left behind in the Turtle Clan. Qing Yishuan and the other Holy Emperor were worried that Jianchen would be in danger, so they had chased him all the way from the Poseidon Hall's territory with the divine hall. Within the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, Qing Yishuan and the other Holy Emperor focused on the intense battle between the 3 emperors. All of them were greatly shocked. Among all of them, there were only 3 emperors in the Sea Realm. They were the leaders of the 3 territories, yet 2 of them had suddenly appeared and were able to fight evenly with the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. Not only did this shock Qing Yishuan and the others, but it also shocked all the Holy Emperor present. Saint Kings at great perfection did not possess such strength. This only meant that the 2 experts who were locked in a stalemate with the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall were also emperors. At that moment, all of them had the same thought. Where had these 2 unfamiliar emperors come from? Within the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, Tai Do stared at Tai Ta and asked curiously, Why do I find that dazzling, golden emperor so familiar? It's like I've seen him before. I feel it too. He's extremely similar to Jianqin's golden-skinned friend, Qing Yishuan said with a heavy voice. Her eyes shone brightly as if she wanted to see through the two of them. This was because Jianqin and Tai Ta were both enveloped by bright light. It was impossible to see them from the outside. All that could be seen were two balls of light that moved quickly. I feel the same way. If that person really is Jianqin's friend, then is the other emperor fighting with the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple? Lan Jing said. He wanted to say something, but he stopped. However, his words caused the hearts of the experts within the divine hall of the 8 wastelands to churn. The serpent ancestor has reappeared. Sacrifice your valiant spirit. At this moment, the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple roared at the sky, seeing how he was unable to kill Jianqin and Tai Ta after so long. He was prepared to use his final trump card. He wanted to sacrifice one of the serpent ancestor's valiant spirits to make the serpent ancestor even more powerful so that he could kill Jianqin and Tai Ta in a single stroke. If Jianqin and Tai Ta did not die today, he would not be able to rest easy. Immediately, an even more terrifying presence radiated from the serpent ancestor. At that moment, the serpent ancestor's valiant spirit seemed to have turned into a roaring flame. The valiant spirit was being sacrificed, heading towards destruction. It's time to stop. At this moment, a drawn-out sigh rang out in the surroundings. A tall, slender woman bathed in blue light had appeared several dozen kilometers away. With a flash, she crossed several dozen kilometers and stood before Jianqin and Tai Ta. She calmly stared at the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple and said, "In the past, the serpent ancestor was renowned. No one among the 4 races was his opponent. He was the undisputed greatest of his generation and was revered by everyone. After his death, his valiant spirit did not disperse. He has always been secretly protecting the Serpent God Temple, earning our respect. Do you want to make the valiant spirit of the serpent ancestor disperse from the world because of your personal grievances? You, Sis, Yadrium, the matters of my Serpent God Temple are not for the people of your hall, Poseidon, to tell us what to do." The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple coldly replied, but he showed no intentions of stopping. He continued to sacrifice the serpent ancestor's valiant spirit. Chapter 1337. Kong Tai, don't be stubborn. The serpent ancestor was the most revered emperor in the history of our sea realm. He has done many things for our sea realm in his life and has made great contributions. How can I just watch you destroy the serpent ancestor's soul today? Yadrium gently said. Her voice was calm, devoid of any emotion. With that, a tremendous pressure no weaker than the Hall Master, Dragon, God, Temple radiated from her body. Terrifying pulses of energy erupted like a flood, wreaking havoc in the surroundings. The Hall Master of the Hall Poseidon personally took action. She formed a seal with her jade-white hand and gathered the essence of the surroundings. She used a powerful secret technique. At that moment, all the spectators widened their eyes. They stared in the direction of the battlefield as their eyes were filled with eagerness and excitement. The Hall Master of the Hall Poseidon and the Hall Master Dragon God Temple were clashing. A battle between 2 emperors was something that had not happened in many years in the sea realm, so it obviously attracted everyone's attention. They all wanted to see just who was stronger between the 2 Hall Masters. Let's back off a little more so that we won't be injured by the shockwaves of the battle. A holy emperor in the distance called out. He immediately backed off another dozen kilometers, arriving at a place he believed to be safe. The other people did the same. They had originally been far enough away from the battlefield, but they all backed off a little more at that moment. Even the hall elders of the Serpent God Hall were no exception. Yadrium, you want to fight against me? The Hall Master, Dragon God Temple's eyes burned with anger. Two shocking streaks of light shot out as he stared fixedly at Poseidon. His eyes were filled with intense hatred. He knew that if Poseidon protected Jianqin and Taita, he would not be able to kill the two of them today, no matter what. He was very unwilling to accept this. If the two of them were not eliminated today, they would become a huge problem sooner or later. The essence of the surroundings gathered in Yadrium's hand, condensing into a silver-white trident in the end. Yadrium held the trident with one hand and said, "In order to protect the serpent ancestor's soul and prevent it from dying at your hands, I must stop you today." Yadrium acted extremely decisively. As soon as she finished speaking, she stabbed the trident at the serpent ancestor's huge body. The trident left behind a resplendent streak of silver-white light in the air as it shot through space at an unbelievable speed, striking the serpent ancestor's head. Boom! With a great boom, the serpent ancestor's head suddenly exploded, turning into surging energy that expanded in all directions. It formed a violent gale in the surroundings. The power of Yadrium's attack was not to be underestimated. It destroyed the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's supreme secret technique with a single strike. The serpent ancestor's huge body began to rapidly disintegrate, dissolving into energy that dispersed into the surroundings. The serpent ancestor's huge body had been formed by the Hall Master Dragon God Temple's secret technique. Yadrium dispersed the energy and saved the serpent ancestor's soul, preventing the Hall Master Dragon God Temple from using his final attack. The Hall Master Dragon God Temple had been forced out. He appeared in the sky in a horrible shape, no longer as dignified as before. However, his eyes shone with a vicious light. They shone with an extremely shocking light that contained endless fury and hatred. Yadrium no longer paid any attention to the Hall Master Dragon God Temple. She turned around and looked at Jianqin and Taita. A while later, she sighed emotionally. "Jianqin, you've really impressed me today. I never thought that your strength would reach such a level in such a short amount of time. You really are worthy of being chosen by Her Majesty." "Thank you for your praise, Hall Master." Jianqin clasped his hands. Although he was in a horrible shape, he was still energetic. "Return early. There are more important matters to attend to," Yadrium gently said. With a single movement, she turned into a blur and left, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Jianqin stared at the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, who was in a horrible shape as well. He could not help but sneer. "Esteemed Hall Master, you probably never thought that this would happen. You got Tao Jingtian to lead me from the territory of the Poseidon Hall to the territory of the Serpent God Hall before personally dealing with me. In the end, not only did you fail to kill me, you even ended up in such a horrible shape." The Hall Master Dragon God Temple immediately paled from anger when he heard Jianqin's mocking words. His chest heaved violently. He was the mighty ruler of a region, so his status was extraordinary. Yet he had been mocked like this today. He was about to explode from anger. However, he also knew that it was impossible for him to kill the two of them in his current state, no matter what. Although the two of them seemed to be heavily injured, their battle prowess had not decreased by much. If they continued fighting, he would not be able to gain the upper hand. This was because he had just received an attack from Yadrium while he was heavily injured, so he was even more injured now. "Taita, let's go." Jianqin did not remain there for too long. He called out to Taita, and the two of them flew toward the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. When Qin Yishuan, the Holy Emperor, and the elders of the Turtle Clan saw that the two mysterious emperors who were locked in battle with the Hall Master Dragon God Temple were actually Jianqin and Taita, all of them became stunned. They remained in a daze for quite some time. Although Qin Yishuan and the other Holy Emperor had already vaguely guessed the identities of the two mysterious emperors, they still found it hard to believe when their guesses were confirmed. "Ruler, it's actually a ruler. The Emperor fighting with the Hall Master Dragon God Temple is actually the ruler of our Turtle Clan," an elder emotionally cried out. an elder of the turtle clan emotionally called out. His entire body violently trembled as tears streamed down his face. The holy emperor in the surroundings heard what he had said, and all of them were shocked. The turtle clan had actually given birth to an emperor. This was something that could shake up the entire sea realm. And from the looks of it, the other unknown emperor seemed to have a close relationship with the emperor of the turtle clan. This was an incredible matter. We'll talk about this when we get back. Return to the divine hall of the 8 wastelands first. We'll leave right now. Jianchen said to everyone. Jianchen was like a god in the eyes of the clansmen of the turtle clan, so they obviously obeyed his orders. They all returned to the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. Jianchen waved his hand, and the divine hall of the 8 wastelands shrank. In the end, it flew into his hand the size of a fist. Afterward, he left with Taita and hurried toward the territory of the Poseidon Hall. Jianchen had already sensed that the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall had already arrived and was hiding in the darkness. This was an extremely bad situation for Jianchen. Back then, he had destroyed a clone of the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall, causing extremely heavy injuries. The two of them had already fallen out, so he worried that the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall would work with the Hall Master, Dragon God, Temple to deal with him and Taita. If I forge the Azulite swords, I'll be able to deal with them easily even if the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall and the Hall Master, Dragon God Temple work together, Jianchen thought. He needed a sword to unleash the full power of his sword origin. Now that he had not forged the Azulite swords, he was basically fighting barehanded. He would always be at a disadvantage. Chapter 1338. Jianchen and Taita returned to the Turtle Clan with the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. But the group of holy emperor who had stopped to watch the show lingered for quite some time. They all communicated through communication techniques. The contents of their conversations all involved the emperor of the Turtle Clan and another unknown emperor working together against the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. They were extremely secretive, afraid that the furious Hall Master of Dragon God Temple would hear them. They had lived in the sea realm for many years, so they knew extremely well just how long the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple had remained as an emperor. He had already traveled quite a long distance. Yet the emperor of the Turtle Clan who had just broken through was actually able to fight evenly with the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple and even injure the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. All of them felt extremely shocked. Although the emperor of the Turtle Clan had worked together with another emperor, there was still a difference in strength even if they were at the same level of cultivation. I never thought that the ruler of the Turtle Clan would actually become an emperor. This is unbelievable. In the history of the Turtle Clan, they only had a few hall elders when they were at their peak. The one who has appeared now is the only emperor in the history of the Turtle Clan. I wonder who the other emperor is and what his relationship is with the emperor of the Turtle Clan. I never thought that the Sea Realm would gain 2 more emperors all of a sudden, and both of them have gone to the territory of the Poseidon Hall. I wonder if the situation of the Sea Realm will change with the appearance of these 2 emperors everyone discussed. There were only 3 emperors in the Sea Realm before, and they each ruled over a territory. Now that 2 had appeared all of a sudden, the situation of the Sea Realm would be greatly affected. The Hall Master of Dragon God Temple clearly thought of this as well. His face became terrifyingly sunken. Regardless of what kind of threat Jianchen would pose to him in the future, just the appearance of the 2 emperors was enough to severely threaten the interests of the Serpent God Hall. At the same time, the Serpent God Hall and Jianchen were still enemies, so he really did worry about whether Jianchen and Taita would greatly affect the authority of the Serpent God Hall in this territory. The Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall secretly concealed his presence as he silently stared at the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple. He would glance in the direction that Jianchen had left in from time to time. His gaze was extremely deep. I never thought that Jianchen's strength would increase so quickly. He really is an unprecedented genius, after all. The Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall only let out a long sigh after quite a while. Jianshin's growth had exceeded his expectations. He knew that it was very difficult for him to pose a threat to Jianshin now, since Jianshin could reduce the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple to such a horrible state. He also possessed the power to fight against the Hall Master. He was no longer the ant of the past. Jianshin is too close to the Poseidon Hall. This is rather bad, thought the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. This isn't good, thought the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. The light in his eyes flickered a few times before he silently left. In the territory of the Turtle Clan that belonged to the Poseidon Hall, the clan became lively once again after a few days of peace. Back then, all the clansmen of the Turtle Clan had hidden themselves in the divine hall of the 8 wastelands due to the threat of the Tao family. Now that the threat of the Tao family had been dealt with, all the clansmen of the Turtle Clan had returned to their homes. Today, the entire Turtle Clan was filled with jubilation. An extremely heavy atmosphere of joy permeated the air. Everyone smiled brightly. They were extremely happy and excited. Many of them had even begun to sing happily. This was because all the clansmen of the Turtle Clan had learned that their revered ruler had become an emperor. From today onwards, he would stand on equal footing with the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall, the Hall Master of the Dragon God Temple, and the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall. Not only was this a supreme honor to the Turtle Clan, but it was also a manifestation of their strength and an increase in status. Other than their ruler, the ruler had a very good friend who was also an emperor. Now, their Turtle Clan had 2 emperors, while the 3 divine halls that ruled over a territory only had 1 emperor. Soon after Jianshin returned to the Turtle Clan, the news of the ruler of the Turtle Clan becoming an emperor spread through the entire sea realm like wildfire. It immediately shook up the entire sea realm. Many people sighed in amazement as well as many doubts. At that moment, all the people of the sea realm and the various large organizations discussed this matter. Many important people from peak organizations immediately visited the Turtle Clan with great gifts in an attempt to confirm the authenticity of the rumor. In recent years, the sea realm had always been a tripartite balance of power. Now that 2 emperors had suddenly appeared, the significance was extremely great. It would cause a huge commotion, so many people began to wonder if the tripartite balance of power would be broken. Jianshin had no idea that news of him becoming an emperor had already spread through the sea realm. He was currently holding a meeting in the discussion hall of the Turtle Clan. Qin Yishuan, Taido, Lanjing, Xanpian, and Mokez, the 5 holy emperors, were all present. Below them were all the saint ruler elders of the Turtle Clan. All of their faces were bright red from excessive excitement. I've gathered everyone here today to announce a few things. The first is that from today onwards, the Turtle Clan has truly stood up in the sea realm. We no longer fear any organization, Jianshin said with great enthusiasm. His voice was filled with great confidence. Now he had the strength to say something like that. Cheers immediately rang out from below. A few elders of the Turtle Clan even teared up. They were overwhelmed with joy. The Turtle Clan had never reached such glory in its history. Jianshin could not help but think of the Grand Elder's face as he looked at the excited elders. He sighed inside and thought, Grand Elder, I've already completed most of your final wishes. Before long, the Turtle Clan will possess the strength to look down on the entire sea realm even without me. A while later, when everyone had calmed down, Jianshin continued, The second thing is that I've captured all the important people of the Tao family alliance. They had almost caused the destruction of the Turtle Clan in the past, so I'll leave them all to you to deal with. Jianshin released Tao Jingtian and the 4 other holy emperors from the artifact space. They were all heavily injured and barely had any battle prowess left. They did not even have the strength to flee. We have to kill these people. Only their blood can appease the souls of our clansmen. Only then can we give an explanation to our clansmen who died in the past, the elders of the Turtle Clan angrily said. Their hatred for Tao Jingtian and the others had reached the limit. Chapter 1339. Jianqin glanced at Taido, Lanjing, Xanpian, and Mokez. After a moment of thought, he said, Taido, Lanjing, Xanpian, Mokez, you were forced to join the Turtle Clan back then because you had no other choice. Now I will give you a chance. If you want to leave, I, Jianqin, will not stop you. I will even give you some heavenly resources to increase your strength. After all, you've done quite a lot for the Turtle Clan during this period of time and have contributed greatly. Taido knelt down without any hesitation. He politely said, Ruler, I will not leave. I am willing to stay in the Turtle Clan forever. I may not be a clansman of the Turtle Clan, but I am willing to become a part of the clan and follow the ruler for the rest of my life. I will serve the ruler until the day I die. Lanjing, Xanpian, and Mokez were in no hurry to make a decision. They all looked at one another and hesitated. The three of them were originally disciplinary elders of the Heavens Spirit Hall. They had once hunted down Jianqin with the 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall, but they had been forced to follow Jianqin in the end. They were rather similar to Taido. The three of them hesitated for a very long time before finally making up their minds. Lanjing said, Ruler, we still want to return to the Heavens Spirit Hall because that's where we grew up. We already have deep feelings for the Heavens Spirit Hall, so it's equivalent to our home. Jianqin sighed and sighed as a sliver of disappointment flashed through his eyes. He said, I respect your decision. You can return at any time, but before you leave, I will give each of you a gift as repayment for the great contributions you've made to the Turtle Clan. Thank you for your kind intentions, Ruler. We're already extremely grateful that you're willing to let us return to the Heaven's Spirit Hall. So how can we accept a gift from the ruler? We feel ashamed to accept it. Xanpian said in shame. From a certain perspective, their lives already belonged to Jianqin, yet they actually wanted to leave. They felt so ashamed that they could not raise their heads. However, the Heavens Spirit Hall held great significance in their hearts, so they really did want to return if possible. Jianqin raised his hand to stop Xanpian. He said, Don't be in such a hurry to turn me down. The gifts I'm giving you can allow your strength to skyrocket and become Hall Elders in the shortest amount of time possible. Lanjing, Xanpian, and Mokez all raised their heads to look at Jianqin. They were all shocked. They did not doubt Jianqin's words. After all, he was already an emperor, so why would he speak without thinking? However, they found it hard to believe that Jianqin would actually give them something so valuable. When they thought about how not only had Jianqin restored their freedom, but he had even given them such a great gift, the three of them became even more ashamed. They were too ashamed to show their faces. Jianqin waved his hand at the three of them and said, You can leave. I'll send someone to deliver the items to you later. From today onwards, you've regained your freedom, and I will not interfere with any of your matters. You can leave at any time. Lanjing, Xanpian, and Mokez all bowed towards Jianqin before retreating. With a wave of his hand, Jianqin tossed a ring to Qing Yishuan, who was staring at him blankly. He said, Qing Yishuan, from today onwards, the Tao family no longer exists in the Sea Realm. This is Tao Jingtian's space ring. Take a look and see if there's anything you need in there. The space ring hovered before Qing Yishuan, held in place by an invisible force. Qing Yishuan seemed to return to her senses. She grabbed the space ring absent-mindedly and checked its contents. A while later, a sliver of disappointment appeared in her eyes. She said, There's nothing in there that I need. However, the Tao family has a secret vault that few people know about. Most of their treasures and valuables are stored in there. I think what I need should be in there as well. Qing Yishuan flicked her finger, and the space ring immediately flew back to Jianqin. Do you know where the vault is? Jianqin asked calmly. Even though this was the collection of a peak clan, very few things could move Jianqin's heart. He had reached a whole new level now. Regular treasures were like dirt in his eyes. However, the heritage of the Turtle clan was rather lacking right now, so the wealth of the Tao family just happened to be enough to fill the gap. I do know where it is, but there's something I need to confirm with you before I go. Are you the Holy Emperor right now? Qing Yishuan asked as she stared at Jianqin closely. Although she had personally witnessed the battle between Jianqin and the Hall Master of Dragon God Temple, she still refused to believe that someone who was far weaker than her could become a holy emperor in such a short amount of time. After all, Jianqin had not even reached sainthood when he took the 8 wastelands from her. I'm not the holy emperor right now, but if I really fight, I'm no weaker than the holy emperor, Jianqin faintly smiled. Qing Yishuan gasped as she stared at Jianqin like she was looking at a monster. She said, "The speed at which your strength increases is truly astounding. However, since you possess such strength, you should be able to enter the secret vault of the Tao family. There's no time to lose. Let's set off right now. Ruler, the ancestor of the Ceylon clan has come to visit. He wishes to see the ruler." At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and reported politely. "The Ceylon clan?" Jianqin murmured. He was not unfamiliar with the name. It was one of the peak clans in the territory of the Poseidon Palace. They were no weaker than the Tao family. Reporting, "The ancestor of the Signata clan has come to visit." Reporting, "The old patriarch of the Lancian clan has come to visit." Reporting, "The old patriarch of the Shao tribe has come to visit." Reporting, after the Ceylon clan, many other important figures from other clans and organizations had come to visit the Turtle clan. They were all large clans that reigned over a region in the territory of the Poseidon Palace. There were even some that were more powerful than the Tao family. Jianqin frowned. Although he had already expected something like this, it had happened far too quickly. After all, he had only returned to the Turtle clan a short while ago. However, Jianqin did not plan on personally receiving these people. He knew that they had only come to confirm whether the Turtle clan had an emperor or not. So he just left Taita there to receive the guests in his place. He went to the treasury of the Tao family with Qing Yishuan. The treasury of the Tao family was located in a swamp over 100,000 kilometers away from the Turtle clan. The environment of the swamp was terrible and filled with danger. It was filled with a powerful, poisonous gas all year round. Jianqin and Qing Yishuan ignored the gas and made their way to the very depths of the swamp. In the end, they entered a valley. Suddenly, a black figure shot over with lightning-like speed, heading straight for Qing Yishuan and Jianqin. It was accompanied by an extremely powerful, poisonous gas. Even the Holy Emperor dared not to be careless. Chapter 1340. Bang! The black figure fell to the ground by Jianqin's feet before lying there motionlessly. Only now did he see the black figure's true appearance. It was a 10-meter-long, mutated lizard. Its body was black and covered in mud. It gave off an abnormally pungent stench. The lizard was extremely poisonous. Blood flowed from the wound on its head where Jianqin's sword qi had pierced through it, staining the ground. It actually corroded the ground, creating a pit that constantly expanded and deepened. Jianqin pointed a few times and shot out a few more strands of sword qi at the lizard's corpse. Every single strand of sword qi was extremely powerful, easily piercing through the lizard's body. In the end, he removed a fist-sized monster core from the lizard's body and grabbed it. Without any protection, the poison on the monster core was unable to harm him at all. Jianqin used a handful of mud to wipe the poison off the monster core before stowing it away in his space ring. The mutated lizard was a Class 8 magical beast, so the monster core it nurtured was extremely valuable. Even if he had no use for it, he could give it to the experts of Changyang Prefecture. Qing Yishuan stared at the dead lizard as she stood beside Jianqin. She was secretly shocked. The lizard was not much weaker than her. Even if she had been the one to deal with it, she would have needed to expend a lot of effort to kill it. She had never thought that it would be killed so easily by Jianqin. It was as weak as an ant, which shocked her very much. Is this the strength of the Holy Emperor? It's actually so terrifying. If Jianqin had used that attack on me, I wonder if I would have ended up like this lizard. Qing Yishuan was greatly shocked. She understood very well that the bastard, who was far weaker than her back then, had now become an existence that she could only look up to. Thinking about how Jianqin had been chased by her for thousands of kilometers, Qing Yishuan immediately felt an indescribable emotion. Even her lips curled into a faint smile. She had once chased down a holy emperor. Is the treasury of the Tao family here? Jianqin no longer paid any attention to the lizard's corpse, allowing it to lie there. Even though it was the corpse of a Class 8 magical beast, he had no plans of taking it away. He studied the valley seriously. Qing Yishuan dismissed her thoughts and stared at the valley. She said, "Correct, it's here. When I secretly followed Tao Jingtian, I saw him enter this valley. However, there are many hidden, killing formations in the valley, which are extremely powerful. As a result, I never entered it, so I have no idea where the treasury of the Tao family is located. There are indeed many formations in the valley. Even if a holy emperor enters the 9th heavenly layer, he will die if he is careless. These formations should have been personally cast down by the holy emperor a very long time ago. It's impossible for a holy emperor to cast down such powerful formations at his level of cultivation." Jianqin had already expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the entire valley. He discovered many hidden formations. The Tao family is a powerful clan that once gave birth to a holy emperor. However, there were many holy emperors in the sea realm back then, nowhere near as few as there are now. As a result, the appearance of a holy emperor was unable to lead the Tao family to glory. These formations should have been cast down by the holy emperor, so probably only experts at the same level as the holy emperor would be able to get through them. Qing Yishuan said as she looked at Qing Yishuan. She looked at Jianqin. Whether she could obtain the treasury of the Tao family today would all depend on Jianqin, as there was something she needed in there. Has no one discovered the treasury of the Tao family after all these years? Jianqin asked. Qing Yishuan said after a moment of thought, "According to what I know, the ancestor of the holy emperor of the Tao family had once used a great ability to conceal this valley, sealing it off. Even holy emperor experts would struggle to discover it, so no one has ever discovered this place. However, with the passage of time, the great ability cast down by the ancestor of the Tao family has lost its effects, which is why this place has been exposed. However, this place is extremely well hidden. Normally, no one would come here. I only learned about the treasury of the Tao family by accident, and I only found this place by secretly following Tao Jingtian." Jianqin nodded. He believed most of what Qing Yishuan had said, which was why the valley really had been cast down by a holy emperor. "Let's go in. Follow behind me carefully. I think I have already found the exact location of the treasury," Jianqin said calmly before entering the valley first. Immediately, the landscape before him changed. The valley vanished, and he was standing on a vast ocean all by himself. The waves surged into the sky as a huge, vicious beast flew over. Its presence was as great as the mountains and rivers, enveloping the surroundings. This was a vicious beast that possessed the might of the holy emperor. It was extraordinarily powerful. Jianqin's expression did not change. He sighed. This formation really is extraordinary. Even the holy emperor would need to expend quite some effort to get through it. It's a pity that, with the passage of time, the power of the formation has greatly weakened. It can't even take a single blow from the holy emperor. Jianqin swung his sleeve and countless strands of sword qi shot out. The sword qi split into two. One rushed into the ocean and struck the bottom, while the other rushed into the sky, shattering the universe. Boom! With a great rumble, the space violently trembled. Before the vicious beast with the might of the holy emperor could reach Jianqin, it dispersed into a gust of clear air. The landscape before Jianqin changed once again. The ocean vanished, and he was standing in the valley once more. Afterwards, Jianqin led Qing Yishuan deeper and deeper into the valley. Along the way, They swept through all the formations hidden in the darkness. The formations were indeed very powerful. If they were at their peak, they would have been able to stop the Holy Emperor. However, they could only be used against the Holy Emperor now. They obviously could not stop Jianqin. Before long, Jianqin and Qing Yishuan stood in the very depths of the valley. Before them was an uneven cliff. "We've already reached the end of the valley," said Qing Yishuan. She glanced around, searching for anything suspicious. It should be here. Jianqin stared at the cliff before him. His senses of the soul had already discovered that there was a formation here. Boom! With a great rumble, Jianqin shot out a strand of sword qi, striking the cliff before him. The entire ground shook violently and dust filled the air. A huge cave appeared before Jianqin and Qing Yishuan. It was pitch black inside and cold, moist winds blew out. Qing Yishuan's eyes narrowed. Even with her strength, she had failed to discover anything amiss at such a close distance. She could not help but sigh inside at the ingenuity of the formations here. The cave was very long. It led straight underground. Jianqin and Qing Yishuan followed the tunnel for several kilometers before finally arriving before a huge stone door. The entire stone door pulsed with powerful energy, making it extremely tough. In order to prevent the cave from collapsing, Jianqin did not forcefully destroy it this time. Instead, he used a strand of sword qi to carve out a 2-meter-wide hole in the stone door and walked in. Inside the stone door was a huge space. The ceiling was embedded with thousands of fist-sized luminous pearls and pearls of various colors. The largest ones were even the size of a person's head. Several small mountains of crystal coins were stacked neatly in one place. They radiated with extremely dense water elemental energy. The crystal coins had all surpassed supreme quality, reaching the level of God tier. Chapter 1341. In the center, 2 huge square stone slabs stood there. There were exquisite and clear carvings on them. The figures in the carvings were all humans, and they were displaying terrifying moves. Even though it was only a single carving, it gave off an extraordinary feeling. It was as if the pressure of the world was faintly emitting from it. Jianqin stared at the 2 slabs, and a sliver of joy appeared in his eyes. This was because he could already tell that they were Saint-tier battle skills suitable for humans, and they were complete. The flame mercenaries had only just begun to develop. They seemed powerful on the surface, but their heritage was just far too lacking. High-level battle skills like these were exactly what the flame mercenaries needed, because they needed these Saint-tier battle skills if they wanted to become a truly powerful organization. Other than the flame mercenaries, even the people of the Chanyang prefecture needed these things. This time he had discovered 2 complete Saint-tier battle skills in the treasury of the Tao family. This was definitely a great harvest for him. Jianqin glanced around and discovered 2 more weapons stabbed into a huge rock near the Saint-tier battle skills. They were a blade and a sword, both enveloped by a layer of hazy light. They gave off powerful pulses of energy. Emperor armaments. Jianqin was surprised once again. The wealth of the treasury of the Tao family had far exceeded his expectations. Not only were there 2 complete Saint-tier battle skills, there were even emperor armaments. If these items were taken to the Tianyuan continent, the Holy Emperor would definitely fight over them to the death. However, both the Saint-tier battle skills and the emperor armaments belonged to humans. They were only useful to humans, so leaving them in the hands of the sea race would only seal their glory. Qing Yishuan's gaze had been fixed on the emperor armaments and Saint-tier battle skills as soon as she entered. Her eyes burned with desire as she murmured, "I learned by chance that the ancestor of the Tao family had once ventured to the Tianyuan continent and came across a great fortuitous encounter there. He found a dwelling left behind by a supreme expert after he passed away and benefited greatly. Not only were there Saint-tier battle skills, but there was also an emperor armament. Looks like the news is true. It's just a pity that the emperor armament can only be used by humans and the Saint-tier battle skills are only suitable for humans." They're not suitable for the sea race, or the Tao family would be able to become even more powerful with just the Saint Tier battle skills. Jianchen agreed with Qing Yishuan's words very much. If Tao Zhengtian could grasp Saint Tier battle skills, he would be able to take on Holy Emperor at great perfection. If Tao Zhengtian possessed battle prowess of battle, the fate of the Tao family would not be as it was today. Unfortunately, if the Holy Emperor Tao Zhengtian possessed strength, the fate of the Holy Emperor. However, the Holy Emperor clearly did not create a Saint Tier battle skill. Saint Tier battle skills were a kind of heavenly might. If one wanted to create a Saint Tier battle skill, not only would one need to possess extraordinary talent and comprehension ability, one would also need to have a certain degree of compatibility with the world. Only then could one create a Saint Tier battle skill under certain conditions. In the history of the Tianyuan continent, a few experts who had reached the level of Holy Emperor would be able to create earth-shaking Saint Tier battle skills by chance. At the same time, there were a few people with unprecedented talent who were unable to create a Saint Tier battle skill even after reaching the peak of Holy Emperor. Qing Yishuan looked at Jianchen and said, "Jianchen, do you still remember what I said before, that the Tao family has something I need? It's right before me now, so I hope you won't stop me." Qing Yishuan's eyes were filled with desire and urgency. If Jianchen was still as powerful as before, Qing Yishuan would not have wasted so much time talking to him. However, she needed Jianchen's permission now. "You need an emperor armament." Jianchen looked at Qing Yishuan. If he had known earlier that Qing Yishuan wanted an emperor armament, he would have given her the emperor armament he had used before in the Turtle Clan. Ever since he reached the 4th layer of the chaotic body and comprehended sword origin, the emperor armament in his hand was completely useless to him. It could not endure his power at all. Qing Yishuan nodded before staring at one of the Saint Tier battle skills engraved on it. She said, "I also want a Saint Tier battle skill. Other than these 2 items, the rest of the treasures are all yours." Jianchen thought about it and said, "I can give you the Emperor armament, but the Saint Tier battle skill is very important to me as well. I hope I can only lend it to you. Once you comprehend it completely, you have to return it to me." "All right, it's a deal." Qing Yishuan agreed in an extremely straightforward manner before putting away the sword-shaped Emperor armament and the Saint Tier battle skill engraved on the stone tablet. Jianchen continued to search through the treasury. Although there were many things piled up in the treasury, countless items that were worth cities, they were no different from dirt in Jianchen's eyes. He could not even be bothered to look at them. In reality, even the piles of God-tier crystal coins to one side did not attract much attention from Jianchen. In the end, Jianchen arrived at the bookshelf made from rare metals. He discovered that 1/3 of the books were actually the cultivation experiences and cultivation methods left behind by the Holy Emperor. Not only were there books from the sea race, but there were books from humans and magical beasts as well. A small portion of the remaining books were Heaven Tier battle skills, all created by humans. The remaining books were books that explained the various wondrous items in the world and ancient records of the history of the Sea Realm. At this moment, Jianchen pulled out an ancient beast hide from an inconspicuous spot on the bookshelf. Unfurling it, he saw that the beast hide was a meter long and covered in extremely complicated formations. It seemed to contain an entire world. Even with Jianchen's powerful soul, he almost fell into it. "What's this?" Jianchen was surprised. He immediately became stern. He could tell that the beast hide was not simple. This is a teleportation formation, and it's a high-level teleportation formation. It can be used to cross worlds. Strange, high-level teleportation formations like this can only be found in higher worlds. Why would it end up here? Ziying's voice rang out in Jianchen's head. Her voice was filled with surprise. This beast hide also comes from a higher world. It's extremely tough. It's the fur of an immortal beast. That's at least at godhood. Even the Holy Emperor can't destroy it. "Master, This teleportation formation will be of great use to you. You have to take good care of it, Qing Sua said. With that, Jianqin immediately took out an embroidered box and stored the teleportation formation away. He had to take good care of it. Suddenly, Ziying cried out in surprise. She stared at the corner of the treasury in interest and said, "Master, let's go over there. There's something very special there." Jianchen was shocked as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. The sword spirits were extremely prideful, and there were very few things that could catch their attention. Now, there was actually something that was extraordinary in their eyes, which greatly shocked him. Without any hesitation, Jianchen immediately made his way over. In the end, under Ziying's guidance, he rummaged through the pile of valuable treasures and found a piece of armor. The armor was completely black. It was forged from an unknown material. It was as light as a feather in his hand, as if it was weightless. However, it was extremely damaged. It was not in perfect condition. Ziying, Qing Sua, what's so special about this armor? Jianchen asked out of curiosity. He flipped the armor around in his hand, but he did not discover anything other than its special material. Master, this is a god artifact. It's of a higher grade than immortal artifacts, and the quality of the armor is quite high as well. I estimate that the owner of this armor is a chaotic prime at the very least, or even a grand prime. It's just a pity that the armor is so damaged that it's basically useless, Ziying said in pity. Jianqin was greatly shocked. His hand that held the god artifact began to tremble slightly. He stared at the god artifact in disbelief as his heart churned. This was actually a god artifact that might have been worn by a Grand Prime. Grand Primes were experts who stood at the very apex of the higher world. Without a doubt, the armor they wore was a supreme treasure. At this moment, he had actually discovered a supreme treasure here. Even though it was damaged, it was still enough to shock him. Chapter 1342. The god artifact is already so damaged. Can it still be used? Jianqin asked. He could not help but feel some pity. The power of the god artifact was unquestionable, but it was just too damaged. Looking at it right now, the god artifact isn't of much use anymore. The inscriptions are damaged, and the artifact spirit has dispersed. Aside from the fact that it's still very tough due to its special material, it doesn't have any defensive abilities at all. However, Master can keep it with you. Once Master becomes stronger in the future, you can find some materials to repair it. Although it'll be nowhere near as good as when it was in perfect condition, it'll still be of some help to Master, Ziying said. Master, you don't need to be disappointed. Actually, with Master's current strength, this damaged god artifact is more useful than an intact one because every single god artifact has extremely high requirements for its user. Only 9 heavenly Xian immortals can refine god artifacts, and they can't be above medium quality. God artifacts above medium quality require immortal monarchs or even immortal emperors to refine, said Jianqin. Afterwards, he stared at the damaged god artifact in Jianqin's hand and studied it. He said, "This should be a high-quality god artifact or even a supreme-quality god artifact. As a result, it'll be useless even if Master obtains it if it's in perfect condition. It'll be even more useful if it's damaged." Ziying nodded in agreement. Qing Sua is right. If the god artifact is in perfect condition, Master won't be able to use it even if it's only a low-quality god artifact. However, if it's damaged, its quality will drop, or even drop to the level of an immortal artifact. Master will be able to use it once your chaotic body breaks through a level. Jianchen rejoiced inside when he heard that. He said, "Ziying, Qing Sua, do you have a method to repair this god artifact? Can the god artifact make the god artifact drop in quality?" "We do have a method, but we need some materials. Fortunately, we don't need to completely repair the armor because the materials we need aren't too great. We should be able to find them on the Tianyuan continent," said Ziying. Jianqin immediately became excited. As a matter of fact, he was rather eager to repair the god artifact because it would be his greatest trump card when he entered the saint's world in the future. Although the defenses of his chaotic body were very powerful, he did not mind wearing a set of immortal armor on the outside. The treasury of the Tao family was definitely a pleasant surprise for Jianqin. Not only did he find a large amount of cultivation resources and saint-tier battle skills, but he even found 2 treasures that were useful to him. This had definitely exceeded Jianqin's expectations. Jianqin moved away all the items in the treasury of the Tao family. He had cleaned it all out. He split everything he had obtained into 2 portions, one for the Turtle Clan and the other for the Flame Mercenaries. When Jianqin and Qing Yishuan emerged from the treasury, only half a day had passed since they had entered. Qing Yishuan stared at Jianqin with mixed feelings as she stood outside the treasury. She said, "Jianqin, let's bid farewell here. I will be leaving the Sea Realm soon. As for the Saint-tier battle skills, I will definitely return them to the place you spoke of once I comprehend them." Jianqin stared at Qing Yishuan calmly and asked, "Do you have powerful enemies on the Tianyuan continent? I feel like you've only come to the Sea Realm to avoid them." Qing Yishuan nodded with a rather heavy expression. "To be honest, I've offended a large organization on the Tianyuan continent. I was hunted down by this organization when I was still a saint ruler, so I hid in the Sea Realm because I had nowhere else to go. If you don't even dare to return to the Tianyuan continent with your current strength, it looks like the organization you've offended is either an ancient clan or a protector clan. Whatever, I'll help you out since you've done so much for the Turtle Clan." Jianqin took out a jade box from his space ring and said, "There's an immortal peach here. It's more valuable than any heavenly resource you know of. After consuming it, your strength will reach great perfection in the shortest amount of time possible. You might even become a holy emperor." The box contained a violet cloud peach. It was a first-grade immortal tier peach, and a single one could increase one's cultivation by 500 years. 500 years was the standard of the immortals' world. In a lower world, it was equivalent to 1,000 years of cultivation or even more. Jianqin and Qing Yishuan went their separate ways. Qing Yishuan left by herself after accepting the violet cloud peach from Jianqin. However, she doubted Jianqin's claim that a single peach could allow her to reach great perfection in the shortest amount of time possible. She refused to believe it. It was just too unbelievable. Jianqin did not stay for long either. He directly returned to the Turtle Clan. More and more people had come to visit the Turtle Clan. They were all people in charge of large clans, and basically all of them were Holy Emperor. Basically all the large clans in the territory of the Poseidon Hall had sent people. There were even some people from the other 2 territories. Without any exception, all of them had come to visit the ruler of the Turtle Clan. However, they obviously could not see the ruler, so they could only chat with the elders in the guest hall. Although a few of them were extremely displeased that they could only chat with the elders despite their status as Holy Emperor, none of them dared to show it because there was a tremendous presence that constantly warned them that a Holy Emperor was paying attention to them. Jianqin did not show himself. He silently returned to the room where he cultivated. Other than Tai Ta, no one noticed him. 3 days later, Jianqin and Yadrium appeared in a region of the Sea Realm where very few people had set foot in. The energy of the world there was extremely thin, so thin that it was impossible for people to cultivate. Before them was a withered land. The end of the land was shrouded by a dense mist. The mist was very strange. Not only was Jianqin unable to see through it with his eyes, even his soul was blocked outside, unable to enter the mist. Up ahead is the Sea of Despair. It's one of the most renowned danger zones in the Sea Realm. It's far more dangerous than the Divine Realm because even emperors can die once they set foot in there. In ancient times, many emperors of the Sea Realm died here. Some of their corpses could not even be found, Yadrium said with a deep voice. She bathed in a layer of blue light. Although her face was obscured, it was possible to imagine just how stern she was. Even though she considered herself to be quite powerful and rarely had an opponent among the Holy Emperor, She was not completely confident that she could return safely once she set foot in the Sea of Despair. Are there emperor-level beasts in the Sea of Despair? Jianqin asked in surprise. Chapter 1343. Yadrium greets Your Majesty. Poseidon's arrival made Yadrium put away her arrogance. She immediately bowed to Poseidon politely. Her voice was filled with respect from the bottom of her heart. Jianqin greets Your Majesty. Jianqin clasped his hands at Poseidon as well. Although there are no vicious beasts in the Sea of Despair, it is without a doubt the most dangerous place in the sea realm, let alone the Holy Emperor. Even I had to be careful when I entered the Sea of Despair when I was at my peak condition. The Sea of Despair is far more powerful than you can imagine. Poseidon did not waste time on small talk. He directly explained the situation of the Sea of Despair to the two of them in detail. In terms of understanding of the Sea of Despair, no one in the entire sea realm could match a tenth of Poseidon's understanding of the Sea of Despair. Both Jianqin and Yadrium were shocked when they heard that. Even Poseidon had to be careful when he entered the Sea of Despair when he was at his peak condition. Just what kind of place was the Sea of Despair? It was actually so terrifying that it could threaten Origin Realm experts. Poseidon continued. The mist in the Sea of Despair is thick and never disperses. It's been like this for countless years already. The mist is no ordinary mist. It's an extremely strange energy that can silently invade your body and devour your life force. As a result, you have to constantly be corroded by the hellish mist once you enter the Sea of Despair. Other than that, there are many vicious spirits born from the mist. They're very difficult to deal with. Some of the powerful ones can even kill the Holy Emperor. But fortunately, there aren't many of them in the Sea of Despair. The chances of encountering them are very low. Even though that's the case, you still have to be careful once you enter the Sea of Despair. You can't be careless. Other than that, there are two other things you have to remember. The first is that the space in the Sea of Despair is very unstable. Spatial distortions often occur, so it's very easy to get lost. You can only find the correct path with the help of the abyssal crystal. Secondly, once you step into an area where the fog is thin, you must leave as quickly as possible. You must not stay for long because this is a restricted area. When it came to the second point, Poseidon's tone became extremely solemn. He was very afraid of this place. Jianqin shivered inside. He found it rather unbelievable that even Poseidon, who had reached the Origin Realm, feared this place so much. After all, Poseidon was an existence that surpassed the Holy Emperor. According to the sword spirits, Poseidon was already an immortal in the past. I've already said what I need to say. Once you step into the Sea of Despair, I won't be able to provide you with any help. You'll have to rely on yourselves in there. Once we encounter a spatial distortion, we must stay together and never separate. There is only one abyssal crystal. Poseidon warned him in the end before watching Jianqin and Yadrium enter the Sea of Despair. They disappeared into the heavy fog in the end. Only when the two of them had completely vanished did Poseidon sigh. He murmured, I want the two of them to risk their lives to find my divine hall in the Sea of Despair, just so I can be reborn. Have I been a little too selfish? I hope the two of them can come out safely. As soon as he set foot in the Sea of Despair, Jianqin felt like his entire body was enveloped by an extremely dense mist. Everything before him was white, and with his eyesight he could only see a distance of 100 meters. At the same time, the senses of his soul were completely useless here. The fog there was very unusual. It was formed from a strange energy and possessed a certain level of substance. Jianqin was enveloped by the fog, so he felt like he was wrapped up in a ball of soft cotton. The cotton constantly pressed against him before turning into tiny strands of energy that attempted to seep into his body. Jianqin had learned from Poseidon that the strange fog could devour the vitality of the body, so he did not dare to be careless. Chaotic force immediately flowed through his body, filling every corner and blocking the fog that wanted to invade his body. Beside him, Yadrium was enveloped by a powerful water-attributed energy. She was also being eroded by the fog. With a flip of her hand, she pulled out the abyssal crystal from her space ring. The palm-sized crystal let out a gentle glow as it hovered in the air. As Yadrium's hand seals changed, the energy within the crystal immediately began to flow. It gradually condensed into a small, blue bird that spread its wings and took off. The abyssal bird was only the size of a fist. With a flap of its wings, it turned into a blue streak of light and shot off into the distance. It moved very quickly, disappearing from Genshin and Yadrium's sights in the blink of an eye. The abyssal bird will take us to Poseidon's supreme, divine hall. Let's go. Poseidon called out to Genshin before pursuing the abyssal bird with Genshin. She could sense the abyssal bird through another layer of consciousness. As a result, even though the abyssal bird had vanished from her sight, Yadrium was still able to tell where it was. Not only was the space in the Sea of Despair very unstable, but it was also rather strange. Genshin and Yadrium discovered a few strange spaces along the way. They were like hearts, beating rhythmically as if they were alive and filled with evilness. Genshin and Yadrium followed the abyssal bird's trajectory. They constantly changed directions along the way and even retreated in the direction they had come from a few times. This was because the space in the Sea of Despair had become chaotic, where yin and yang had been reversed. Although they seemed to be retreating in the direction they had come from, they had actually maintained a straight line without any deviation. Suddenly, the space beside Genshin trembled. A ripple of space expanded toward Genshin with lightning-like speed. In the end, it landed on Genshin's left arm. Silently, the clothes on Genshin's left arm were ripped open. His arm had been cut as well, causing it to bleed. Genshin glanced at the wound on his arm and was secretly surprised. Even with his fourth-layer chaotic body, he had been injured so easily. If it were any other holy emperor, they probably would have been cut in half by the ripple of space. The Sea of Despair really is terrifying. The danger here is incomparable to the divine realm, Genshin thought as he became even more cautious. Genshin and Yadrium continued forward. They could not sense the flow of time in the Sea of Despair at all, so they had no idea how long they had traveled. In short, the abyssal bird had already dispersed twice due to exhaustion. This was the third time Yadrium had used a secret technique to summon the abyssal bird. They were getting closer and closer to the depths of the Sea of Despair, but Genshin seemed to be in a rather horrible shape. His clothes were torn in many places, and specks of blood remained. Clearly, this was not the first time he had been injured. He had been injured by the ripples of space that could appear at any time. Yadrium was no exception. She was also slightly injured, but she was surrounded by a layer of energy which blocked the corrosion of the mist. As a result, her appearance was not visible. A few specks of light silently appeared behind Genshin and Yadrium. They shone with a weak white light that flickered, perfectly fusing with the surrounding mist. They seemed like a pair of ghostly eyes. Chapter 1344. The first few pairs of ghostly eyes gradually increased to over a dozen. They followed closely behind Genshin and Yadrium, moving very quickly and silently. When the ghostly eyes reached over 20 pairs, they finally could not hold themselves back any longer and launched a sneak attack at Genshin and Yadrium. Over 20 pairs of thick tentacles shot toward the heads of Genshin and Yadrium. The tentacles seemed to be completely condensed from the mist. They seemed to have fused with the surrounding mist, making it difficult to discover their existence unless one paid close attention to them. Just when the ghostly eyes launched a sneak attack at the two of them, Genshin and Yadrium sensed danger. Genshin did not even look back as a silver-white sword chi condensed on his arm. He directly swung his hand behind him and sent out a powerful sword chi. When the sword chi came in contact with the tentacles, they immediately dispersed. The sword chi did not slow down at all, continuing toward the ghostly eyes behind them. Immediately, a sharp cry rang out from behind. The sword chi had clearly struck the mist, but a few blurry figures flashed out and then shattered. These figures came in all shapes and sizes. Some were humanoid, some were beastly, and some were grotesquely shaped. Each figure corresponded to a pair of ghostly eyes. A few pairs of ghostly eyes that had attacked Jianqin and Yadrium were immediately dispersed. At the same time, a ripple of energy appeared. Yadrium had taken action as well. A trident condensed from energy had appeared in her hand. With a swing of her arm, she threw the trident. It split into 2, then 4, then 8. In the end, 8 identical tridents shot toward Gui Yen with lightning-like speed. The 8 tridents seemed to intertwine with one another as they produced powerful pulses of energy that caused the mist in the surroundings to churn violently. They destroyed the tentacles in an unstoppable manner before viciously shooting toward the ghostly eyes behind them. None of the 8 tridents missed. Every single one of them accurately struck a blurry figure hidden in the mist. With a series of ear-piercing cries, the 8 figures immediately dispersed. The ghostly eyes seemed to possess a certain level of intelligence. After losing over a dozen companions, they seemed to understand the power of Jianqin and Yadrium. Without any hesitation, they immediately retreated, vanishing into the mist without leaving behind a single trace. Jianqin and Yadrium sharply stared in the direction that the ghostly eyes had disappeared in. They both frowned, and after quite a while of silence, Jianqin said, "What strange things! Not only do they move silently, but they don't give off any unusual presences either. I actually failed to sense them following us earlier. If it weren't for the fact that I sensed them when they suddenly attacked, I probably would have suffered. These should be the vicious spirits that Her Majesty spoke of. They're born from the mist and are very difficult to deal with. Fortunately, they're not very powerful, which is why we managed to repel them so easily. We need to be careful from now on. If we come across any Emperor-level vicious spirits, it'll be difficult to deal with them even if we work together," Yadrium said rather sternly. Jianqin nodded silently. Although he possessed the battle prowess of a holy emperor, he was not a true holy emperor after all. Even holy emperors could die here, and even origin realm experts needed to be careful. He needed to be on full alert. At this moment, Yadrium had already lost her connection with the abyssal bird. She took out the abyssal crystal again and used a secret technique to summon the abyssal bird to continue on their way. Jianqin and Yadrium were constantly attacked by vicious spirits along the way. However, under their careful vigilance, they would discover the vicious spirits ahead of time every time, and their lightning spirits would quickly wipe them out. However, as they ventured deeper into the mist, the vicious spirits they came across rapidly increased in strength as well. Now, the spirits they came across had already reached the level of Holy Emperor. There were even a few that were equivalent to Great Perfection, Holy Emperor. The number of vicious spirits in the mist was unknown. Jianqin and Yadrium had already destroyed several thousand of them along the way, but the numbers did not decrease at all. Their path constantly changed due to the chaotic space. During this time, the 2 of them were ambushed by over a dozen vicious spirits that were equivalent to Great Perfection, Holy Emperor. These spirits did not harm the body and only targeted the soul, causing them to suffer. However, Jianqin and Yadrium were no ordinary person, while Yadrium possessed supreme strength, so they were fine. Suddenly, an ear-piercing shriek rang out from up ahead. It was abnormally ear-piercing and accompanied by a soul attack. Jianqin and Yadrium both stopped at the same time. They stared ahead sternly as they remained cautious. The shriek from before had actually caused their souls to tremble slightly. "Be careful. There's an extremely powerful vicious spirit up ahead. It should be at the level of emperors," Yadrium said with a deep voice. She acted like she was facing a great enemy. Even Poseidon said that an emperor-level vicious spirit would be difficult to deal with, so they could not be careless. Jianqin was also stern. He glanced around and said, "Should we go around it?" As soon as Genshin finished speaking, the mist before them began to churn violently. A white figure gradually appeared before them. It was a vicious spirit that seemed to be completely condensed from mist. It was humanoid, but it had a tail. Its figure was blurry, and it had no facial features. It only had a pair of extremely bright eyes that were filled with malice. With the appearance of the vicious spirit, many more pairs of eyes appeared around Genshin and Yadrium one after another. There were several dozen pairs of eyes. Now, the two of them had been completely surrounded by a group of vicious spirits. Every single one of them was very powerful. Even the weakest one was at the level of a holy emperor. "Looks like it's too late," Genshin said with some pity. He knew that a battle was unavoidable. "I'll keep the emperor-level vicious spirit busy. You deal with the rest," Yadrium said in a deep voice. Yadrium growled before striking out decisively. She directly charged at the emperor-level spirit and began fighting it with her trident. The body of the spirit seemed to have solidified. The first time it clashed with Yadrium, it actually produced a powerful ripple of energy, causing the mist in the surroundings to churn violently. Yadrium shivered inside. She had actually failed to gain the upper hand against an emperor-level vicious spirit for the first time. She was on par with the vicious spirit. However, vicious spirits did not specialize in direct confrontations. Instead, they specialized in attacking the soul. Direct confrontations were their weak point, yet now she was actually on par with an emperor-level vicious spirit. This made Yadrium sense that something was off. She no longer held back and used her full strength against the vicious spirit. On the other side, Genshin fought against the vicious spirits at the level of the Holy Emperor. A powerful strand of sword chi condensed in his right hand as he flashed through the mist with the illusory flash, dispersing the vicious spirits one by one. Due to the great difference in strength and the fact that Genshin's sword chi was condensed from laws, the vicious spirits were unable to put up any resistance before Genshin. They would immediately disperse as soon as they were struck by Genshin's sword chi. The emperor-level vicious spirit seemed to become furious when it saw its subordinates being slaughtered by Genshin. It produced an ear-piercing shriek, and immediately the vicious spirits surrounding Genshin seemed to have received some sort of order. They all charged at Genshin. Genshin casually destroyed 3 vicious spirits before immediately dodging with the illusory flash. However, the vicious spirits were born from the mist, so they were like fish in water. They were no slower than Genshin and surrounded him in the blink of an eye. They lunged at Genshin like hungry wolves. Chapter 1345. The mist spirits rammed into Genshin's protective light. When they came in contact with Genshin's protective light, they produced hissing sounds, like grease dripping onto a bonfire. Genshin's protective light was similar to the barriers condensed from energy by other fighters. But not only did it possess great defensive power, it also possessed great offensive power. When the spirits rammed into the light, their bodies condensed from mist immediately began to rapidly fade, almost dispersing. However, Genshin's protective light dimmed slightly, even though he managed to block the attacks from so many spirits on par with the Holy Emperor. The surrounding spirits constantly rammed into Genshin's protective light with their bodies. They no longer cared about life and death. At that moment, they seemed to have become fearless warriors. Finally, Genshin's protective light shattered after losing over a dozen spirits. Afterward, the remaining spirits charged toward Genshin's head as a flood. Genshin seemed to understand what the spirits were trying to do. A strange smile appeared on his lips, but he did not stop them. He allowed them to enter his sea of consciousness. Although Yadrium was engaged in an intense battle with Emperor-level spirits, she was constantly paying attention to Genshin's situation. She could not help but panic when she saw so many spirits enter Genshin's head. The most powerful attack of these spirits was the soul. It was the hardest to defend against. Once the soul was injured, it would be much more severe than being injured physically. Although Jianqin possessed the strength of an emperor, even a holy emperor would struggle to fend off the attacks of so many holy emperor-level spirits. It was even possible for him to die. However, she needed to keep the emperor-level, vengeful spirits busy, so she could not break free. At the same time, the spirits had already entered Jianqin's head. It was too late for her to save him even if she wanted to. Yadrium paid close attention to Jianqin's situation as she fought against the emperor-level spirits. A sliver of worry appeared in her eyes. She was unwilling to see Jianqin die here. Spurt. Yadrium was injured by the emperor-level spirit while she was distracted. She vomited a mouthful of blood and was blown away. The emperor-level, vengeful spirit immediately chased after her. It faded away, turning into a ball of mist that quickly drifted over. It formed a cage around Yadrium. The white cage shone with blue light as terrifying pulses of energy shook the surroundings. Yadrium dismissed her thoughts and struck out as hard as she could. She engaged in an intense battle with the emperor-level vengeful spirit in the cage of mist. A mermaid statue appeared behind her. It possessed a surging presence, and every time it struck out, it seemed to be able to destroy the surroundings. Although Yadrium was injured, her battle prowess was still very great. The cage of mist shook violently as a part of its original body fought against Yadrium in an earth-shattering battle. After several dozen spirits entered Jianqin's head, Jianqin remained where he was with his eyes closed, as if he had been petrified. This did not last for very long. A few seconds later, Jianqin opened his eyes. The light in his eyes flickered as they shone brightly. He sharply glanced at the cage of mist created by the emperor-level spirits and directly sent a powerful strand of sword chi toward it. Boom! The cage of mist was already on the verge of shattering from Yadrium's attacks. Coupled with Jianqin's attack, it immediately exploded with a great boom. Yadrium also discovered that Jianqin was fine and immediately let out a sigh of relief. She then focused on dealing with the emperor-level spirit. The emperor-level spirit possessed a certain level of intelligence, so it was clearly stunned when it saw that Jianqin was fine. It seemed to be in disbelief. Jianqin used the illusory flash and charged toward the spirit as a blur. A 2-meter-long, white sword chi condensed in his right hand, stabbing toward the spirit with blinding white light. The sword chi pierced through the emperor-level evil spirit's body, creating a sizzling sound. A fist-sized hole was quickly melted into the emperor-level evil spirit's body by the sword chi. Yadrium's eyes suddenly narrowed when she saw this. She was secretly surprised. Jianqin actually posed a greater threat to the spirit than she did. Just what kind of power is Jianqin using? It seems to be on the same level as Emperor's power, but it seems to be at a much higher level than Emperor's power, Yadrium thought. The Emperor-level spirit gradually lost ground against Jianqin and Yadrium's combined attacks. Its body became rather illusionary as most of it had been injured by Jianqin's sword chi. Jianqin's sword chi was condensed from laws after all, so it was actually more powerful than Yadrium's. Suddenly, the spirit turned into a dense mist and split into two. The two halves shot toward Jianqin and Yadrium's foreheads like swords. Since Jianqin was facing an emperor-level spirit this time, his protective light was unable to stop it. In the end, the spirit invaded his head. Yadrium was not able to avoid it either. Her soul was invaded by the spirit as well. The emperor-level spirit appeared in Jianqin's sea of consciousness as a terrifying white demon. However, before it could devour Jianqin's soul, two streaks of light, one violet and one azure, appeared from the depths of the sea of consciousness. Two swords flew over with lightning-like speed and enveloped the white demon with their violet and azure lights. Soon after, the environment in his sea of consciousness changed drastically. This was a vast starry sky with countless immortal corpses floating in the void. Golden blood and star fragments were floating in the starry sky, emitting a terrifying pressure and energy fluctuation. The white demon began to violently tremble as fear filled its eyes. It then shrieked and turned around to flee. It fled at a speed several times faster than when it had come, leaving Gentian's sea of consciousness. At the same time, a dazzling blue light erupted from Yadrium's forehead. The imprint of a blue trident suddenly appeared on her forehead. It hovered in the air and rapidly expanded. In the end, it turned into a 3-meter-long trident that hovered above Yadrium's head. It shone with a blue light that enveloped her. This was a true god weapon. It pulsed with a terrifying presence that was actually countless times more powerful than an emperor armament. The spirit that had invaded Yadrium's soul was forced out by the weapon. It quickly fused back together with the other half of its body. It glanced at Jianqin in lingering fear before turning around to flee. It did not stay for even a moment. However, Yadrium just happened to see the expression in the spirit's eyes. She was clearly stunned, as if she could not believe what she had just seen. She then glanced at Jianqin and sank into her thoughts. Jianqin stared in the direction the spirit had disappeared in for a while before looking back at Yadrium. He stared at the trident hovering above Yadrium's head and sighed in amazement. "Oh, Master, is that an emperor armament? Why do I feel like it's even more powerful than the ancestral weapons of the 10 protector clans?" The trident rapidly shrank as it was enveloped by a layer of blue light. It returned to the shape of an imprint and stuck to Yadrium's forehead before vanishing. Yadrium pondered for a while before replying, "It's not an emperor armament. It's the weapon Her Majesty used in the past." Chapter 1346. Although I have His Majesty's weapon, I can't use it as I please. I can only use it when my life is in danger, Yadrium added. Her gaze toward Jianqin was filled with curiosity. She had used Poseidon's weapon to repel the vicious spirit, so she was very curious about what Jianqin was relying on. No wonder he remained unscathed when so many vicious spirits attacked his soul. So even the vicious spirit couldn't do anything to him and even showed fear. Jianqin must have something impressive on him, Yadrium thought inside. However, she did not ask Jianqin about it. Everyone had their own secrets. The rest of the journey was relatively peaceful. Although they would come across some danger from time to time, the number of vicious spirits attacking them had decreased drastically. Suddenly, the mist in the surroundings began to thin. Visibility increased from 100 meters to over 10,000 meters. The space there was very stable. Even a battle between Holy Emperor experts would not cause the space there to ripple at all. "Stop!" Yadrium called out and immediately stopped with Jianqin. The two of them were very stern because they remembered Poseidon's warning that they could not enter the region where the mist was thin because it was a forbidden zone. "We've entered a forbidden zone. Retreat immediately," Yadrium growled. However, before she had even finished speaking, a terrifying killing intent permeated the surroundings, enveloping Yadrium and Jianqin. The two of them immediately felt like they had fallen into a cavern of ice. The coldness was bone-chilling. The killing intent was just far too powerful, so powerful that it was shocking. Even with Yadrium and Jianqin's strength, they felt like they were immobilized by the killing intent, as if they had been frozen. Jianqin and Yadrium were astounded. The Forbidden Zone was far more terrifying than they had imagined. Just a strand of killing intent was so terrifying. Jianqin and Yadrium raised their heads and looked over. They saw a bewitching red light flickering 10 kilometers away. Fresh blood that had yet to dry remained on the ground. It was extremely red. The terrifying killing intent in the surroundings originated from the bewitching red light. "What's that?" Jianqin and Yadrium stared at the red light. They were very surprised inside. Was it a treasure or something dangerous? "Master, that's the organs of an expert." Suddenly, the sword spirit's voices rang out in Jianqin's head. "What?" Jianqin was stunned. He stared at the red light in disbelief. The organs of an expert actually possessed such terrifying power. enough to kill holy emperors. He was extremely shocked. Sword spirits. Just how powerful is this expert? Jianqin asked and sighed. It should be an immortal emperor, but he's not from the immortals' world. He's from the saints' world. The mist is not simple either. It's filled with an aura of death. Once the aura of death invades the body, there's even a chance of dying. This place is not simple, Xing explained. Jianqin silently stared at the bewitching red light 10 kilometers away for a while before withstanding the corrosion of the killing intent with Yadrium. They retreated step by step under the tremendous pressure. Fortunately, the killing intent only came from the organs of a supreme expert. It did not possess the ability to attack. At the same time, Jianchen and Yadrium were quite far away, which was why they could barely withstand it before retreating safely. When the mist in the surroundings thickened again, the killing intent vanished as well. However, what they had just experienced had left an indelible impression on Jianchen and Yadrium. What was that? I had a very strong feeling that if we had gotten too close, we probably wouldn't have been able to leave, Yadrium said with lingering fear. The red light she had just encountered was even more terrifying than an emperor-level, vengeful spirit. Jianchen shook his head and acted like he did not know. Yadrium and Jianchen continued on their way, but they had slowed down by a lot. However, even with that being the case, they had still entered the forbidden zones several times. The situation was exactly the same. Every single forbidden zone was the flesh and blood of a supreme expert. They radiated with powerful killing intent, and their blood would never dry up. It was very demonic. Jianqin learned from the sword spirits that the flesh and blood all came from the same expert. They had already existed here for countless years, and the essence of the flesh and blood had never dispersed. They were eternal and indestructible. They could easily kill emperors. Fortunately, Jianchen and Yadrium would stop in time every time they entered a forbidden zone before retreating as quickly as possible. As a result, they were fine. Suddenly, the surrounding space began to violently pulse. Their surroundings blurred, and Jianchen discovered that Yadrium was rapidly fading as well. Oh no, the space-time has been distorted again. Jianchen shivered inside. He had already experienced this many times. The space in the Sea of Despair was very unstable. They would be sent to a random location in the Sea of Despair every time the space-time was distorted. However, the disorientation of space this time was different from the previous times. He had always been with Yadrium during the disorientation of space and had been transported to the same place. However, Yadrium's figure had become blurry this time, which was a sign that the two of them would be transported to different places. Jianqin had no time to think. He immediately grabbed Yadrium's hand and pulled her over. They relied on the abyssal crystal to guide them through the Sea of Despair. Yadrium possessed the abyssal crystal, so if they were separated, he would become completely lost in the Sea of Despair, where visibility was less than 100 meters. He might not even be able to make it out for the rest of his life. Yadrium's hand was slender and soft. It was as smooth as jade and slightly cold. However, Jianqin was in no mood to experience this. As soon as he pulled Yadrium to his side, the surrounding space became chaotic. It pulsed in an extremely unstable manner. The blue light around Yadrium pulsed a few times before stabilizing very soon. She pulled her hand out of Jianqin's grasp without leaving a trace. Her calm heart immediately began to ripple. She was no longer as calm as before. In her entire life, no man had ever touched her skin. The space stabilized very soon, and Jianqin and Yadrium's vision returned to normal. However, their complexions were extremely ugly because they had appeared in a region without any mist. The region was clear, and the surroundings were desolate. They could not see the end of the region. Only the sky remained white, obscured by the mist of death. "Oh no, we've probably arrived in the most dangerous region," Jianqin said with a deep voice. They had entered the forbidden zones several times along the way. so they had gained some understanding of them. The more dangerous a forbidden zone was, the thinner the mist would be. However, there was not a single bit of mist in this region. Yadrium's heart sank as well. She looked around and found that the scenery was the same everywhere. Even if she wanted to leave the forbidden zone, she had no idea where she could go. Jianqin also looked around. To his surprise, he did not find the corpse of the supreme expert. After a moment of thought, Yadrium took out the abyssal crystal and summoned the abyssal bird to lead the way. She then followed the bird, but this time the two of them moved extremely slowly and carefully. Chapter 1348. Jianqin's eyes immediately narrowed when he saw the sword slashes on the tower. He could sense an extremely powerful comprehension of the way of the sword from the sword slashes. The comprehension was extremely profound, far surpassing what Jianqin could currently comprehend. To Jianqin, it felt like an ocean, boundless and unbelievably powerful. Jianqin stared at the dense sword slashes on the tower without blinking at all. He slowly closed his eyes and began to attempt to comprehend the way of the sword on the tower. He also walked the path of the way of the sword, but he had only grasped the basics. The sword slashes on the tower possessed a very profound comprehension of the way of the sword. Jianqin felt that if he could comprehend a little of it, his comprehension of the way of the sword would skyrocket and his strength would increase drastically. Jianqin's consciousness slowly fused with the sword slashes on the tower. However, as soon as he came in contact with the sword slashes, his body shook violently. His face immediately paled as if he had suffered a heavy blow. Blood spurted from his mouth as he staggered backwards. The comprehension of the way of the sword within the sword slashes was just too great. It was not something that Jianqin could comprehend right now. Not only did Jianqin fail to comprehend the way of the sword, but he had also been injured by the sword slashes. This is the Anata Tower. Master, you must not attempt to comprehend the sword slashes on the tower. These sword slashes were left behind by the greatest expert of the immortals' world, the Nirvanic immortal exalt who had reached Sword God. They are filled with sharp killing intent, and even sword immortals can become heavily injured from them. Xing's voice rang out in Jianqin's head. What? These sword slashes were left behind by the Nirvanic immortal exalt? Jianqin became stunned when he heard that. Who was the Nirvanic immortal exalt? He was the greatest expert of the immortals' world. Although he remained as an immortal exalt, his strength had already surpassed immortal exalt. He was even more powerful than the old master of the sword spirits. However, he had actually discovered the sword slashes of the Nirvanic immortal exalt in the Sea of Despair, which left him extremely shocked. Xing sank into his memories and murmured, "This tower is called the Anata Tower. It's the life-bound god artifact of the Anata Grand Prime, a peak expert of the Saints' world. The Anata Grand Prime's strength ranked within the top 3 in the Saints' world. Only the Grand Prime of the warring gods could suppress him. In the past, the Nirvanic immortal exalt of our immortals' world engaged in a devastating battle with the Anata Grand Prime in outer space. In the end, the Anata Grand Prime was heavily injured by the Nirvanic immortal exalt and fled. His whereabouts are unknown. I never thought that the Anata Grand Prime would still die in the end. His life-bound treasure, the Anata Tower, has fallen here as well." Jianqin thought about it and asked, "In that case, does the damaged armor I just obtained from the treasury of the Tao family belong to the Anata Grand Prime?" "Master, I'm not certain about that. The Anata Grand Prime is most famous for his life-bound god artifact, the Anata Tower. The Anata Tower is extremely powerful. It can destroy an entire region, refine everything in the world, and contain an entire region. Even in our immortals' world, the Anata Tower is renowned." "We didn't pay much attention to the armor worn by the Anata Grand Prime," Ying said. "Master, do you still remember the flesh and blood left behind by the peerless experts you encountered earlier?" These flesh and blood should have been left behind by a first-level immortal emperor expert. That broken divine armor could also have belonged to this immortal emperor. However, the Ineta Grand Prime is dead now, and the Ineta Tower has been damaged by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt. The Ineta Grand Prime's treasures should be in there. Master, we can try and see if we can enter the Ineta Tower, Qing Suo said with a clear voice. Jian Chen's interest was immediately piqued when he heard that. He did not doubt at all that a single item from a Grand Prime's collection would be equivalent to what he had obtained in the Xianhuang microcosm. Jian Chen immediately made his way toward the Ineta Tower. He did not move quickly and was careful with every step, afraid that something might happen. What are you doing? You can tell with a single glance that the tower is anything but simple. It might be even more dangerous than the things we came across before. Yadrium could not help but warn him when she saw Jianchen actually make his way to the tower. This was because there was no mist at all in a very large region, making it extremely dangerous. Hall Master, rest here for a while. I'll go take a look, Jianchen said to Yadrium because he trusted the sword spirits. Yadrium stared at Jianchen's figure as he moved further and further away. She gritted her teeth and followed him. She was also very careful and was prepared to use the Poseidon weapon at any time. When Jianchen was over 10 kilometers away from the Ineta Tower, the Ineta Tower suddenly began to shine with a hazy azure light. A terrifying pulse immediately radiated from the tower, causing the surroundings to tremble. Jianchen and Yadrium's faces changed drastically. The pulse made them feel fear as they trembled from the depths of their souls. Oh no, the artifact spirit of the Ineta Tower still hasn't dispersed. Retreat, Master. The voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jianchen's head. They were frantic, and they immediately fell silent. They had hidden themselves deeply. They were heavily injured right now and were nowhere near as powerful as they were in the past. They were not the opponent of the artifact spirit of the Ineta Tower. Retreat! Jianchen called out and immediately retreated with Yadrium as quickly as he could. The Ineta Tower gently trembled as the azure light grew brighter and brighter. The terrifying pulse affected the surroundings, causing the space there to violently distort. The dense mist in the sky churned violently as well. At this moment, the slashes on the Ineta Tower began to shine with a dazzling light. At that moment, the slashes seemed to come alive. Every single one of them turned into a powerful sword before transforming into transparent swords that revolved around the Ineta Tower. They began to suppress the Ineta Tower. The Ineta Tower was unable to withstand the suppression of the sword slashes. Its azure light gradually weakened before calming down in the end. It stood there silently like an ordinary rundown tower. It seemed nothing special at all. Although the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt and Old Master were both sword gods of the Immortals world, the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt's mastery of the way of the sword far surpassed Old Master's. The slashes he left behind on the Ineta Tower are actually seals, and every single one of them has nurtured their own spirit. Zing sighed emotionally as he stared at the slashes on the Ineta Tower from afar. Although the artifact spirit of the Ineta Tower hasn't dispersed, it's been heavily injured like us. It's been suppressed by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt seal, so it can't recover at all. Master, once you reach the 7th layer of the chaotic body, you should be able to approach the Ineta Tower, Qing Suo said. The 7th layer? Jianchen felt bitter inside. He had only just reached the 4th layer of the chaotic body. Every layer after that would become several times more difficult. Reaching the 7th layer was easier said than done. Jianchen and Yadrium traveled in the opposite direction of the Ineta Tower. After traveling several hundred kilometers, they finally left the forbidden region. Yadrium then summoned the abyssal bird to avoid the Ineta Tower and continue on their way. The rest of the journey was rather peaceful. Jianchen and Yadrium came across fewer and fewer forbidden regions, while the spirits that attacked them gradually disappeared as well. The only problem was that they encountered a few distortions of space and were transported to any place in the Sea of Despair, resulting in quite a few unfortunate encounters. After walking for an unknown amount of time, a blue light finally appeared in their line of sight amidst the dense fog that was less than 100 meters away. A majestic divine hall had appeared before them. The entire divine hall shone with a dazzling blue light. It flickered with a crystalline light as it slowly moved through the Sea of Despair. The divine hall was completely forged from abyssal crystal. Abyssal crystal was originally a product of the Sea of Despair, so a divine hall made from it could avoid many dangers in the Sea of Despair. This is Her Majesty's supreme divine hall. We've finally found it. Yadrium excitedly stared at the blue divine hall and said with a trembling voice, Chapter 1349. No one knew just how vast the Sea of Despair was. The mist that permeated it would never disperse. It had been like this since ancient times. Poseidon's divine hall, which had been forged from the abyssal crystal in the Sea of Despair, floated aimlessly in the Sea of Despair. It would move at all times so no one could find it, not even Origin Realm experts. The only method was to use the abyssal crystal as a recording. Only then would they be able to find the correct direction. Yadrium excitedly flew up the stairs of the divine hall. Jianchen followed closely behind her, making his way to the entrance step by step. The entrance to the divine hall was tightly shut. An extremely great power was hidden within the divine hall. Even Jianchen and Yadrium shivered in fear before this power. Yadrium took out the abyssal crystal and formed a series of hand seals. She used a secret technique to activate the energy within the crystal. A blue pillar of energy shot out from the crystal and formed an extremely profound glyph under Yadrium's control. It shot toward the door of the divine hall with lightning-like speed. Immediately, the door began to glow with blue light. The great power slumbering within seemed to have been awakened. With a series of creaking sounds, the door began to slowly open. Not only was the abyssal crystal a guide to the divine hall, but it was also the key to opening it. However, it required a corresponding secret technique. An icy cold and desolate presence immediately radiated from the divine hall, causing Jianchen and Yadrium's hearts to shudder. They felt like they had returned to ancient times. The divine hall had drifted through the Sea of Despair for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. It had never been opened during that time, so the presence within had become extremely ancient. The divine hall was empty and silent. An invisible pressure permeated the place. The door closed automatically after Jianchen and Yadrium entered the divine hall. Poseidon's familiar voice rang out from within. "You've finally made it to my divine hall safely. Jianchen, I will send you to the core of the divine hall and give you partial control over it. After that, you and Yadrium can take my divine hall and leave the Sea of Despair." Poseidon's tone was mixed with an unconcealable excitement. She felt that the day she could see the light of day again was not far away. An invisible power converged from all directions to envelop Jianchen. Although the power was gentle, Jianchen felt that it was powerful and irresistible. With a flash of blue light, Jianchen was teleported away by this power. He entered the core of the Supreme Temple and began to refine the temple. "Yadrium, you're injured. Jianchen will need a few days to refine the divine hall, so you should heal here first," Jianchen said. Poseidon then said to Yadrium. She did not appear, but her voice drifted from all directions. "Yes, Your Majesty," Yadrium politely replied before sitting down on the ground and beginning to heal. She and Jianchen had both been injured to varying degrees in the Sea of Despair. Jianchen used the toughness of his chaotic body and recovery to make a full recovery soon, while Yadrium did not break through as quickly. Although she had ingested quite a few healing pills, there were still some hidden injuries. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. Yadrium had finally made a full recovery during those days. She had returned to her peak condition. At the same time, Jianqin had completed the refinement of the Divine Hall. He left the core of the Divine Hall and appeared before Yadrium. Jianqin only controlled a portion of the Divine Hall. The true controller of the Divine Hall was still Poseidon. However, Jianqin gained an even clearer understanding of the Divine Hall's strength after controlling a portion of it. Jianqin felt like he was as insignificant as an ant before the Divine Hall. The power within the Divine Hall was enough to easily destroy the Holy Emperor. Jianqin and Yadrium worked together. One controlled the Divine Hall, while the other used the abyssal crystal to find a direction to leave. They hurried off to the sea realm together. The journey back was much easier than when they had entered. Jianqin and Yadrium both remained in the Divine Hall. Not only could they avoid many dangers from the Sea of Despair, but they could also fend off any distortions in space-time with the Divine Hall. They did not need to worry about being teleported to a different place due to the distortions in space-time, causing them to deviate from their original destination. The two of them had entered the Sea of Despair this time, mainly to leave with Poseidon's soul, so that they could prepare for the reconstruction of Poseidon's body. Without the abyssal crystal, even Poseidon would struggle to leave this place. After all, she no longer possessed the strength she possessed in her peak condition. She only possessed a soul, so she could not use many abilities or secret techniques. The Divine Hall did not fly very quickly, but it could fend off the distortions in space-time. As a result, Jianqin and Yadrium avoided many detours. In just around 10 days, they left the Sea of Despair with the Divine Hall and returned to the Sea Realm. They had spent several times, less time than when they had come. "Your Majesty, what should we do next?" Jianqin asked. Now that Poseidon's soul had left the Sea of Despair, the reconstruction of his body was next. "I need to use the spiritual springs of the 99 sea realms to reconstruct my body. I need to use the spiritual energy of the springs to nourish the vitality of my body and fuse it with my soul. During this process, I cannot allow any external interference or all my previous efforts will be wasted," Poseidon said. "Your Majesty, the Hall Masters of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven's Spirit Hall have coveted Your Majesty's legacy for a very long time. The two Hall Masters will probably come to stop you when you reconstruct your body. They're both experts who have become Holy Emperor for many years. We obviously don't need to fear them in an open battle, but we're afraid that they'll try to interfere with Your Majesty regardless of the cost. If that happens, we'll struggle to stop them," Jianqin said with a sliver of worry. "I have already made many arrangements for the successful reconstruction of Your Majesty's body, coupled with the weapon Your Majesty used in the past and your Divine Hall. Stopping them won't be difficult," said Yadrium. "Yadrium, may I ask how confident you are in stopping the two Hall Masters? After all, they also possess powerful secret techniques," Jianqin asked. Yadrium fell silent for a while before replying. "Around 8 floors. Including Your Majesty's Divine Hall, there should be 9 floors. It's just a pity that Your Majesty's reconstruction can't be carried out in the Divine Hall. If it were possible, even if there were several times more enemies, they wouldn't be able to shake up the Divine Hall." Jianqin fell silent as he sank into his thoughts. "Jianqin, may I ask if you have any good methods for me to successfully reconstruct my body?" Poseidon's voice rang out. Her voice was filled with hope. She had reached a crucial moment in her reemergence, so she did not wish to fail at the crucial moment and waste all her efforts. Chapter 1350. Soul-Forged Sword? What kind of sword are you trying to forge? It's actually so powerful that it can kill 2 emperors. Are you going to practice some powerful secret technique? Yadrium glanced to the side and asked out of curiosity. Yadrium had gained a clear understanding of Jianqin's strength from their trip to the Sea of Despair. She knew that Jianqin probably possessed some kind of powerful treasure, but his battle prowess was only on par with regular holy emperors. Once he encountered experts like the Hall Master Dragon God Temple, who had reached the level of Holy Emperor many years ago, he would struggle to be their opponent. This was because the Hall Master, Dragon God, Temple possessed powerful secret techniques, and there was more than one of them. According to her observations of Jianqin, the power Jianqin used was very great, but he did not seem to have used any secret techniques. Jianqin shook his head. I'm not trying to learn some powerful, secret technique. I'm trying to forge a weapon suitable for me. Yadrium became even more curious. She stared at Jianqin in surprise, as if she did not recognize him at all. It was common knowledge that the humans of the Tianyuan continent all cultivated Saint Force. They would condense Saint weapons with Saint Force in the end. Throughout countless years, no one had ever changed this, and no one had ever heard of an expert using a weapon that had been forged. Even the ruler armaments of Saint Rulers, the king armaments of holy emperors, and the emperor armaments left behind by holy emperors were all condensed from the Saint Force of their masters. They were the materialization of energy, making them tougher than steel. Jianqin, since you're so confident, let's wait half a year. Although I'm in a hurry to condense a body and see the light of day again, it's been so many years already, so I don't mind waiting another half a year, Poseidon said. The sea goddess agreed to Jianqin's suggestion. Clearly, she did not want anything to happen while she was rebuilding her body, which would result in all her previous efforts going to waste. Jianqin shrank the Supreme Divine Hall to the size of a fist and handed it to Yadrium to take back to Poseidon's hall. Afterward, he returned to the Turtle Clan all by himself. After giving a few orders to the elders, he immediately entered seclusion. At the same time, Taita entered seclusion, just like Jianqin. He had obtained over a dozen fifth-grade violet cloud peaches and a few immortal tier, heavenly resources from Jianqin. He planned on using them to properly increase his strength. After all, he was the same as Jianqin. Although his battle prowess was no weaker than the Holy Emperor's, his personal strength remained at the same level as the Holy Emperor's. Right now, the Turtle Clan's status in the Sea Realm was like the midday sun. When people came to visit, they were all extremely polite and courteous. Even the most powerful clans did not dare to put on airs when they came to the Turtle Clan. As a result, Jianqin and Ta did not need to worry about the safety of the Turtle Clan at all. They entered seclusion without any worries, cutting off all contact with the outside world. They would not emerge until they reached their goal. In a gloomy room deep underground, a fist-sized golden tower hovered in the air with a hazy golden light. Jianqin sat in a majestic hall within the tower as he communicated with the sword spirits. Master, there are two main steps to forging a sword. These two steps are the most important for forging anything. The first step is to melt the materials. You have to use your true flames to melt the materials and fuse them together. However, the melting of the materials is related to the quality of the materials and the strength of your true flames. If the quality of the materials is too high and the strength of your true flames is too weak, you won't be able to melt the materials. Naturally, you won't be able to continue with the refinement. The second step is to inscribe a sword formation when the sword is successfully refined. The grade of an immortal sword is not only related to the materials used during the refinement, but also the strength of the sword formation inscribed. The stronger the immortal sword, the stronger the sword formation inscribed on it. Jianqin immediately felt a headache when he heard that. He knew that forging the azulite swords would not be easy, but he never thought it would be so complicated. He knew nothing about true flames or sword formations. As for the promise he had made to Poseidon in half a year, it was completely due to the instructions of the sword spirits. However, looking at it now, there were still a lot of things he needed to learn if he wanted to forge the swords. Half a year might not be enough. Master, don't worry too much. Since we've said that we can forge the swords in half a year, we can definitely do it. True flames are split into 3 great realms, which are the triple true flames, the 6 true flames, and the 9 true flames. The 9 true flames are the strongest and can refine God-tier materials. The triple true flames are the weakest and can only refine materials no higher than the immortal tier. However, These true flames are created through a secret technique using the energy within the body. It's a wondrous way of burning the energy within the body into flames. We'll pass this secret technique on to Master later. With Master's talent, you'll be able to grasp it very quickly. And since Master uses chaotic force, the flames created through the secret technique will also be chaotic flames. Although they're not true chaotic flames, they're still much more powerful than true flames of the same level. They can be used to refine immortal materials. After some discussion, Jianqin gained some understanding of forging the swords. Creating chaotic flames was equivalent to burning away the chaotic force within the body, which was extremely draining. Jianqin's chaotic body had only just broken through to the 4th layer, so his chaotic Niden was only the size of a soybean. There was not a lot of chaotic force in there, so it was not enough to support chaotic flames. Afterward, Jianqin pulled out a 5th grade violet cloud peach from his space ring and ate it without any hesitation. As soon as the peach entered his stomach, it turned into tremendous energy that filled Jianqin's entire body. The amount of energy was extremely shocking. It was pure and gentle, so it was very easy to absorb. It would not cause any harm to the body, nor would there be the tragedy of his body exploding from excessive energy. Jianqin circulated his cultivation method and began to absorb and refine the vast amount of energy within the peach. A 5th grade violet cloud peach could increase his cultivation by 2,500 years. That was calculated in terms of higher worlds. But on the Tianyuan continent, it was equivalent to 10,000 years of cultivation for some people, or even more. Of course, this was also related to a person's talent for cultivation. Different people's talent for cultivation would require different amounts of time at the same level of cultivation. If the peach was in the hands of a few geniuses, it would probably only increase their cultivation by 1,000 years or even a few hundred years. The tremendous energy had already formed a whirlpool in Jianqin's dantian. He was currently refining and absorbing it as quickly as possible. The soybean-sized chaotic Niden was like a lake that could never be filled. The vast amount of energy poured in, but it did not undergo any obvious changes. It grew at an extremely slow rate. 7 days later, the tremendous energy from the violet cloud peach vanished. It had been completely absorbed by Jianqin, leaving nothing behind. After consuming a 5th grade violet cloud peach, the chaotic Niden in his dantian had grown from the size of a soybean to an inch in diameter. It was even slightly smaller than a pigeon's egg.